clever pun. The Kongversation.
Hello, and welcome to a new season of the Kongversation. Apologies if it sounds like this intro is being recorded inside a veal crate on a chimpanzee's farm. That's probably because this intro is being recorded inside a veal crate on a chimpanzee's farm.
Hello, and welcome to the Kongversation. We're back! I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm Josh Wallen, and Hyle, finally, the Kongversation has come back, and more importantly than all that, finally, Dixie Kong has come home.
Yeah, I mean, she came home in Bonanza, too. This is nothing new, having Dixie show up, but...
But chronologically speaking, this is before Bonanza, we think, right?
We're going to get into that, believe you me, buddy, but it's season 14 of DK Vine's The Kongversation Donkey Kong universe discussion. And, it's nice to be back, Josh. It was nice to have some time away after those long, grueling episodes we did on Donkey Kong Bonanza last year. But I have to admit, I thought I would just be savoring every single moment of my time off, the 2-month hiatus that we took. But I kind of thrive on the structure of this podcast, it turns out. When I don't have this podcast on my weekly schedule, I find myself just incredibly directionless as far as my workflow goes. I don't know really how to structure my work week if I don't have a conversation as that nucleus.
What I'm hearing is that perhaps I should start my own podcast, because that sounds nice.
It turns out...
I can imagine what that might be like.
It turns out being my own boss actually requires me to... be a bit of a taskmaster with myself. And it's nice to have the conversation back, because for all of my griping about how doing 8-hour Bonanza episodes burn me out, I really do love doing this show. It's the 14th season of it, so I must have some sort of affection for it. But this is also just an incredibly exciting time to be the host.
It's wild to think, like, the show, if it were a person, would be like an edgy 8th grader now.
Yeah, and then they would start their own Donkey Kong website if my own history has any bearing on that. But no, like, we launched this podcast back in 2013, and it's funny because it was right before Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze was even announced. It was announced a few months into the run of this show. And I've always maintained that the genius of our website is that there's always something to discuss. Even when one corner of the DKU is dormant, nothing's going on, we always have something somewhere coming out or, really picking up steam. And that being said, the vast majority of the Kongversation's lifespan has seen us looking to the past or being hopeful about the promise of the future, but we've very rarely been able to live in the present, especially when it comes to the Donkey Kong series. And now we have turned that page. The fandom, we turned the corner. We rounded the corner last year when Nintendo EPD's long in development Donkey Kong game was announced, was released, got DLC, and we are now in a new era of possibilities and renewed optimism for...
Wait, Nintendo released a Donkey Kong? Like, that doesn't make any sense. I think what you're remembering is a Mario game.
Yeah,
why would they launch a new console with a Donkey Kong game, huh?
Yeah, if you had asked anywhere else, we were one of the few outlets just screaming to the heavens that this was coming, and we're vindicated, whatever. But this in the past now. what is ahead is we are still in the afterglow of Donkey Kong Bonanza, obviously. We've still got those ongoing monthly Emerald Rush events, which have just been a boon.
That is always what happens when I'm in afterglow.
It's a boon of fan service. And oh my God, have we been starved for this fan service. At the end of this month, we've got statues for Wrinkly Kong's Ghost and Teenage Tiny Kong, Josh. This is just everything I had been saying for several years now that I wanted for Donkey Kong or the broader DKU. We are getting it from Nintendo. And looking ahead, even beyond Bonanza, we've got the Donkey Kong movie. That's going to be the biggest, I think, flashpoint ahead in Nintendo's efforts to reestablish the series. And it's possible, fingers crossed, we might have more on that in just a few weeks. TBD there.
Hyle, if I didn't know better, I'd say that you're teasing something.
Not really. It's just a hunch, given that the Super Mario Galaxy movie will be premiering in a few weeks. And surely it's going to come up somewhere. Hey, where's Seth Rogen? Where's Donkey Kong in this? Speak nothing of maybe an end credit scene or something. So
see, that's kind of what I'm thinking on it. Yeah, like, basically, for me, the quality of a Mario movie is determined entirely by how much it has to do with Donkey Kong. So, Of course, I really enjoyed the first Mario movie. I'm not anticipating a great deal of interest from me in this one. I'm sure it'll still be a good time, though. But yeah, if there's like a Donkey Kong post-credit scene, like that would make the price of the ticket worth it.
You know, I do like that it has Mouser and Super Mario Brothers 2, Super Mario USA, Doki Doki Panic characters, like at least making cameo appearances. I mean, look, I feasted for years off of that Swanky Kong appearance in the Super Mario Brothers movie. So that's all I really need. Just jangle some keys in front of me. I'll bat them like a kitty cat and I'll be content. But yeah, like this is a Mario movie that actually focuses on the Mario Brothers. Gross. I don't want that.
What?
But, wait, you're not giving over a 30-year movie to Donkey Kong? This disgusts me. Ugh. Cinema is dead.
Yeah, it just seems like they're missing the point of what Mario is really all about, which is, celebrating Donkey Kong.
Right. It's putting Luigi in a cage and focusing on what really matters. Donkey Kong's relationship with Cranky Kong.
Yeah, I don't care about Green Mario.
So we've got that. That's going to be a huge, huge deal when it happens. But what of in between, Josh? Well, I would say it's quite likely we'll be getting a new 2D Donkey Kong adventure sooner rather than later. And, in our world, later means 11 years. So take that for what it is. But who knows what other surprises await as we
sooner means 9 years.
As we bob in these uncharted waters for the Donkey Kong series. But speaking of waters, we'll also be keeping one eye trained on the Atlantic for what's coming out of Rare. Because yes, Sea of Thieves is approaching its 8th year. Everybody who's listening to this probably doesn't care at this point. But Rare's relationship with Blaze, the makers of Super Pocket and Evercade, is strengthening. They've got the upcoming Super Pocket Rare Edition coming out this June, and that's going to include a recalibrated new version of Banjo-Kazooie. There's going to be some exciting things in that, and we'll be talking about that as well as anything else that comes our way. And, of course, there's already so much that's happened in 2026 already that we need to discuss on the conversation that we will be getting to in the coming weeks. We finally learned the near complete vision of the fabled stop and swap feature in Rare's Nintendo 64 games. Greg Mayles, who of course retired from Rare last year, around the holidays he was just like, yeah, here's what stop and swap was. Yeah, playable Donkey Kong and Banjo-Tooie, whatever. So we'll be talking about that. Mario Tennis Fever was released, and the Virtual Boy is back. Josh, the Virtual Boy. We're going to be discussing the Virtual Boy on the Kongversation for some reason. It's because I like it. Because everything related to Nintendo these days is breaking my way. I'm a Nintendo kid again. Feels good.
Yeah, I've had to try really hard to not, like, I can't, I'm not really in a position to be able to afford the Virtual Boy NSO thing. So what I did is I just drug my actual Virtual Boy out of the closet. And it's got some problems. Like, it's got, like, and apparently inevitably all Virtual Boys eventually develop this, like, video display issue, and you have to, like, take it apart and replace a bunch of ribbon cables.
Oh, no.
To fix it, and mine's definitely getting that. But it's at least scratching enough of the itch that I no longer feel the need to, like I feel like I'm missing out on the NSO stuff.
Sure.
Although, once they start coming out with those previously unreleased games, that's going to be a problem.
I know it's a big year for the F-Zero fandom, too. They're finally getting the F-Zero game for the Virtual Boy. Anyway.
Yeah, I hope that Bound High comes out, too.
I'm trying to be better about my outreach to the F-Zero community, Josh. I've insulted them in the past, not intentionally, but just as a comparison point between how Donkey Kong's doing and how F-Zero is doing. And I'm like, look, all they're getting is F-Zero 99. I was like, oh no, we love F-Zero 99. How dare you? And I was like, okay, well.
No, F-Zero 99's a great time. That's true.
Yeah, I know. Just compare it to something like Donkey Kong Bonanza or a whole ass Donkey Kong theme park.
I don't see F-Zero getting a theme park. That's true.
No, that's true. Anyway, and of course, on this episode of The Kongversation, our first one back in 2026, we'll be chatting.
The roller coaster would kill people. Sorry, go on.
We'll be chatting about the surprise January update to last year's Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. The update that brought Dixie Kong to one of the most foundational titles in the series for the very first time. All right. Well, before we get into it, though, as I like to do, I like to plug some various shit, and that shit includes the DK Vine forum, Josh. So, like I said, these are exciting times for Donkey Kong fandom, and if you would like to talk with like-minded weirdos on the internet, not social media, but you would just like to talk on an old traditional video game message board, then go to dkvine.com/forum. And, it's, obviously.
Turn the hand crank on your 56K modem.
Yeah, obviously forums aren't the most popular avenue for fellowship on the internet these days, but I think there's something to be said for the format. I think we made a mistake veering away from it, so I'm going to keep championing it. And as you can see, maybe you can see, if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast platform, or if you're just listening to it on YouTube or SoundCloud, we've got new Kongversation album artwork, and it's Bonanza inspired this year. Once again, Dustin Jackson, DK Vine staffer and frequent Kongversation co-host, has done the artwork for the Kongversation. We went with a Bonanza theme this year, despite last year being the big Bonanza season. Of course, when we started the season last year, we didn't know that was going to be the big year for EPD's Donkey Kong game, so we couldn't get out ahead of it and style the season after the game. But now that we're done really talking about Donkey Kong Bonanza, now is when we're going to lean into the style for Bonanza. We've got the big Bonandium Roots and Golden Microphone album artwork for the year, and that will be available right now. Oh, yes, on our merchandise page. It's dkvine.com/merchandise, or you can just find us on TeePublic, and you can get the Kongversation Season 14 t-shirt for yourself. And
I really dig the album art. Well done, Dustin.
Yeah. I was like, Dustin, here's what I'm thinking for Season 14. That floating gelatinous mass of ethereal creation that you meet at the end of Donkey Kong Bonanza. Can you draw that? And he was like, "Oh, it's going to be hard." And I was like, "You're talented, Dustin. You can do it." I have no concept of what goes into art other than I enjoy it. And so Dustin knocked it out of the park as usual. Sorry, Dustin. I will try to go easier on you next time. And of course, once again, thank you to DK Vine's many patrons. Support DK Vine on Patreon at dkvine.com/Patreon or patreon.com/DK Vine. We do live stream these episodes for our $5 and up patrons. We've got Freezer, we've got Traveler of the Stars, we've got March Rose, we've got Me Muppets, we have got Just Andre, Claire was there, S. Monaco 14. Some people were here, Josh, before you showed up, but then they drifted away. So,
well, yeah, they saw that I was here and they were like, "Fuck this guy."
I think they just got tired.
They were just here for you. They like it better when you're flying solo.
I think they just got tired of waiting for you because you had yet to eat breakfast, despite it being 10 p.m.
Yep. Story of my life.
Well, what else is going on in your life right now, Josh? What's going on with the Geek Critique?
The Geek Critique? What's that, Hyle? Oh yeah, that YouTube channel I used to do.
Oh, past tense.
No, it's still a thing. It's just I've been working on an episode about Metroid Prime 4 that has spiraled into by far the longest thing I have ever written for anything.
Oh,
I'm getting to that point with it now where it's like, this is so long, and pulling it all together is going to be such an incredible amount of work, and I feel like I've bitten off more than I can chew, but I'm like, you chunk it up and you do it.
Yeah, I completely feel that. I have been there. I've been in, obviously nothing as ambitious as what you do, and the caliber of your work is just phenomenal, but I know how it is when you feel like your ambitions continually escalate, and then all of a sudden you are just you're kind of stuck and you're kind of suffocating under the weight of everything you have built upon you. But I have been in a similar boat. I have been struggling with a video on the Snowmads for several months now. And it was supposed to be a real easy breezy thing. And then I decided this would be a good time to really educate people on the history of the Vikings, the real world history on the Vikings, and how it compares and contrasts with the Snowmads. And at a certain point, I'm like, what am I doing? What is this? Like, I have completely lost the thread to this. And
see, that's how it always goes with me too, though, because I always go into a project, typically, not so much this one, but I'm like, all right, this time I'm going to really focus up. I'm going to make this like effective. And, what do they say? They say brevity is the soul of wit.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
But I get in there and I just can't help myself.
I know it really is, because I do a big long video and then I feel like my next one has to be even more impressive. I can't just settle at good enough. And I think that is my biggest stumbling block when it comes to video production, is beyond just like doing everything, like scripting, editing, gathering all the footage, like doing everything, not outsourcing any of it. I think for me, it just, I get stuck up my own butthole so much, and I don't know a good remedy to that. At least with this podcast, it is regimented, it is scheduled. You do one a week at the very least, and sometimes I bite off more than I can chew with it. See the Bonanza episodes, but it's something that I can at least churn out on a reliable basis. When I get lost, I love video production. I love the creative aspects of it, but God. Yeah,
self-imposed deadlines can actually be a boon sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just really hard to keep yourself like committed to that. And then also, I think one thing that's helped me a little bit, especially when like the scripts, I'm as like persnickety about those as ever. Like that, I consider that like the backbone of the entire thing. So I'll take all the time I need there. But when it comes to video editing, like, you can look at your analytics and it's like, okay, a lot of people are sort of half watching this on like a second screen. So if I come across this idea and I'm like, okay, I can make an edit, but it's going to be on screen for like 4 seconds and it's going to take me an hour to do. I mean, you kind of have to weigh like how many people are actually going to see that.
See, I don't care. I want people to be engaged with my stuff. So I'm like, even if only a handful of people watch this as intended, I still have to make it great for them. And I think that is like, I just can't say good enough. I've never been like that. And it's probably why I had to say, for example, in Pokemon, level up my starter Pokemon to level 100 before leaving the grasses of Pallet Town.
Oh, I just beat Pokemon Brilliant Diamond 2 days ago. It's really, really fun time.
I've never gotten past Pokemon Red version.
It's a pretty hard game, yeah. That's a toughie right there. I mean, there's no physical special split. You can Gen 1 miss, of course. I've been on a bit of a Pokemon kick lately, so this is all like firing around my brain.
Yeah, there's, they announced new Pokemon stuff and I can't retain it. I'm like, okay, but did you hear about the new Wrinkly Kong statue in Emerald Rush?
Let's talk about what's important here.
Yeah, there's got to be somebody to care about this crap, right? Like that's
Emerald Rush has been great. Like,
yeah,
I've really enjoyed just having a reason because I played the absolute fuck out of Bonanza last summer, as I'm sure we all did, and just having a reason to like come back to it and put some more time into it every month has been really, really fun.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's been really fun building up my living Donkey Kong museum on DK Island. This whole idea is so you coded. It's like you came up with it. I really do think like the world had to get so fundamentally terrible for Nintendo to start just doing things exactly the way I always wanted them to. I don't know. I made that wish on that monkey's paw, and sorry everyone. All right, well, let's get into it, Josh. Let's talk about Dixie Kong in Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. Now, as I said, this was a surprise update to the game. Came on January 20th this year, which was 4 days after the game's 1 year anniversary. And it was a random Tuesday, and they just, updated their YouTube channel and their website with this information. And I think because it was the night the Idaho crew streams on our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/DKVine. And I was like half-heartedly like puttering around on my computer. I had plugged their stream and I was just checking in to make sure they were actually streaming, and
nobody was asleep.
Yeah, Mitchell Wolf, I think posted the trailer to our Discord and said, what is this? And it was, the Donkey Kong Country Returns HD update trailer with Dixie Kong in the thumbnail. And it was just one of those things. I've talked about my trailer blindness in the past, where when something new is announced, be it a new game or in this case an update, I really can't process what I'm seeing if I'm really invested in said property, in this case Donkey Kong. And so I just stared at it and I was like, what is it? Is this for Tropical Freeze? Are they doing something with Tropical Freeze, but there was a typo? What is this? And this was actually the same day, Josh, as the Emerald Rush event Freeze Break went live. The one with the Snowmat statues, Lord Frederick and a Tux Penguin. And it was wild because this was actually Donkey Kong Country Returns HD temporarily pulling the spotlight back onto itself away from Bonanza. Because, Bonanza was announced on April 2nd of last year. And as soon as Bonanza was announced, it was like Donkey Kong Country Returns to HD. That felt like a relic from a different era, despite only coming out less than 3 months beforehand. And all of a sudden, here was Donkey Kong Country Returns HD with this big random update that added an entirely new character to the game.
And it really was, like, I want to emphasize, this is this is one of those things where it's impossible to predict what Nintendo is going to do. This is a very them move where they'll do these things that, like, nobody would have predicted them, and if somebody would have, then they'd be like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Why would they do that?
This is the kind of thing you would maybe predict before the game comes out. Like,
right, yeah, of course.
Like maybe after the reveal trailer, you speculate, oh, do you think they're going to add any new characters to that? Well, of course they're not going to. It's just Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D upscaled, you idiot. They're not going to add any new characters to it. Of course, Nintendo Today, the Nintendo News app, they have the new Donkey Kong theme on there with the different daily animations of various Donkey Kong characters. And it's actually gotten me to regularly check the app. I'd fallen off from checking it because there's, visually interesting things for my eyeballs now. It's not just Mario characters that I have to, gaze at while I look at what promotions they're pushing towards me. But on this day, January 20th, I took a screen grab on my phone. Like, the news was the Donkey Kong Bonanza Emerald Rush event and Donkey Kong Country Returns HD update. That was all the news for that day. It's just like, oh yeah, on my Donkey Kong news app, here are 2 new Donkey Kong news stories. What a weird time to be alive.
Yeah, I was actually streaming when the news broke myself. I was playing Metroid Prime 4, as aforementioned. Like I said, I've been on this one a while. But yeah, I wrapped up for the night and I checked in on chat, and people were in there just like, Josh, go look at Nintendo. So I actually went and watched the trailer for the first time, on stream, and yeah, it felt surreal in a not entirely dissimilar way to how I remember the Tropical Freeze trailer feeling surreal.
Yeah,
in that it's just like, you don't I'm so happy to see Dixie Kong again. But also, man, I did not see this coming.
Yeah, so the fact that it was a year between the release of Returns HD, and of course Returns HD was released when it was, the whole impetus behind it is people are going to be going to the Donkey Kong Country theme park in Osaka and Orlando, and it's primarily visually based on Donkey Kong Country Returns. Gee, we should probably have that game available for people to buy. And, right. It was something I had actually predicted before they announced it. I was like, yeah, they're probably going to be doing this. And, the extent to what the game was exceeded my limited expectations, because I just thought they were going to release the HD version of Returns that was available on the NVIDIA systems in China. And right. I didn't think they would actually be including all of the Returns 3D accoutrements, the new world, and all the new features. So I was already content with this, Josh. I didn't need anything else in Returns HD. And indeed, on the season premiere of the last season of the Kongversation, episode 1301, I did that with Matt Corna, and I said, this is the definitive version of Donkey Kong Country Returns. And some people took umbrage at that because they said, well, there are missing visual effects, there is a bug in 2-player when you try to bounce off the same enemy, doesn't work, breaks the game for me. And, as somebody who doesn't play this game in 2-player co-op, I really only played this in single player across all 3 versions. I think the only time I ever played any version of Returns in co-op was in 2013 when Chad and I were in Los Angeles together and we played Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D co-op on the 3DS.
Hey man, it's LA.
Yeah, and it was fun. I mean, I enjoyed it, but that's not my primary Returns experience from the last 15 plus years. So I thought,
my initial playthrough of the original Returns was almost entirely in co-op with my neighbor, my childhood neighbor, who was like a brother to me. Me and him played it together. If anything, had we played this version together, I feel like he's kind of a difficulty freak, so he would probably just think that the bouncing bug or whatever it is makes the game even better because it makes it more challenging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I can see why it was a deal breaker for a lot of people. It wasn't for me, and as far as the missing visual effects, I thought, well, the game looks pretty enough. I mean, it's a 2010 Wii game. What do you really want?
Yeah, there are so many things. I'm not an especially visually attentive person. I'm probably well below average in that regard. And there's so much of this stuff where I'm like, well, yeah, if you put them right next to each other in a screenshot, of course I can see it. But I feel like I would never actually notice that if you didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But all of this, from what I understand, both of those issues, the visual bugs and then the bounce bug, were the result of this version, of course, being based on the 3DS version, which, made porting over those bonus levels much easier.
Right.
So they basically had to rework, the 3DS version had a lot of visual downgrades anyway to get it to run on that hardware.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And the way I looked at it, the positives outweighed the negatives. I was just happy to have a version of Returns that really gave us the best of both worlds, because I had always maintained that I preferred the 3DS version of Returns to the Wii version, just simply because of the controls. And also, I thought the new levels were fantastic, and I really wanted Monster Games to develop a new Donkey Kong game after that, but of course they never did. So what we got with this update, and we're going to get into Dixie Kong, that's going to be the primary source of most of our back and forth here, but before we get to that, they did enhance the visuals quite a bit, and they added lots of those missing Wii era effects, and they also improved some things here or there, like I think the rain in Title Trouble is completely different than it was at launch, among other things. They added Brazilian Portuguese as a language option, and I'm not...
Finally!
No, that's really good, because I've often said Brazil, one of the largest concentration of DKU fans in the entire world.
Now, have they ported DKC Returns to Master System yet, though? If you really want to capture the Brazilian market.
All I know, Josh, is that, looking at DK Vine's own metrics, we have a not insignificant amount of readers in Brazil. So much so that I've, often felt guilty that we don't have a Portuguese language version of the website, just because, they love Donkey Kong, Banjo-Kazooie, Rare still down there. And so to add Brazilian Portuguese, I'm like, yeah, good. Long overdue. They've also got improved resolution and loading times on Switch 2, as well as game share. So you can blip it on over to somebody's Switch 2 who doesn't have Returns HD themselves. But yeah, the
loading times have been really, really nice.
Yeah, the loading times were a sticking point for some people. And again, I was coming at it from the perspective of, well, the loading times in Returns on the Wii were terrible anyway. So I am fine with this, whatever. But Here, yeah.
Well, even the worst returns loading times is still much, much faster than the Wii U Tropical Freeze loading times.
Yeah, I always go to the cloud intro whenever you're loading a game for the first time and you're going through the clouds. Yeah. And it just keeps going and going. But yeah, the loading times are far more reasonable now on the Switch 2. And I mean, the game just looks so much better than it did on the original Switch hardware. And I mean, like, I was just like earlier today playing through Treetop Bop with Dixie Kong and just marveling at that sunset in the background. I think the sun wasn't even there in the original.
Yeah, when I said before I wasn't like a especially visual person, that's the one exception.
Yeah.
That's the one thing where as I've been replaying it, I'm like, oh, yeah, there. Boy, that looks a lot better.
Yeah, so it's all really great. It's, again, surprising that it took a year. I have some theories on that, but we'll save that for a little bit. But let's talk about the main course here. The big selling point of this to the diehards, to the freaks, to the Donkey Kong fetishists out there. Dixie Kong as a playable character for the very first time in any version of Donkey Kong Country Returns. I mean, Dixie Kong in Donkey Kong Country Returns for the very first time.
Right? Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. Is this the first time Dixie has ever been playable in a game set on Donkey Kong Island?
Okay, so yes and no, because there are caveats to that. Of course,
I figured. Like, I think I can think of some. But
yeah, like the last world of Tropical Freeze takes place on frozen Donkey Kong Island, and then you've got Dixie's like playable in some respects in King of Swing. Mm-hmm. Diddy Kong Racing DS has those 4 tracks on Donkey Kong Island. There are like things. Barrel Blast is another, but as far as like adventures go, that are just fully set on Donkey Kong Island, then yes, that would be the first time.
Yeah, when I was thinking about opening the episode by saying Dixie Kong has come home, I'm like, man, that's this is kind of the first one.
Yeah, I mean, her debut game, they were on Crocodile Isle. Her big starring role in 3, they were in the Northern Hemisphere, and then she just kind of dropped off the face of the earth after Donkey Kong Land 3 for several years. So, yeah, this feels long overdue in some respects.
It does. I mean, it's wild to think about the fact that it's been going on 16 years since Returns, but I do still remember a big sticking point with that game for a lot of people was just the lack of anything of any characters or really much representation for anything beyond that original Donkey Kong Country game.
And even then, it was scanty. It was just, here are 5 returning characters. Everything else is pretty much new. And in some respects, that is fine.
I mean, the level archetypes were often, very similar to things from DKC1. And a lot of the soundtrack was built off of DKC1.
Yes. And of course, Tropical Freeze, much of the same, although they got David Wise back to do a lot of new compositions in the David Wise style there. Tropical Freeze was where Dixie entered the retro duology originally in actual linear time. But this is her Tropical Freeze model and control scheme just ported backwards in time into Returns. Right. And DX barrels have been added to the game, meaning DD barrels that contain Diddy have also retroactively been inserted here. And in the levels themselves, they will rotate back and forth between DD and DX barrels, similar to how they were in Tropical Freeze when you had the option of obtaining any of the 3 partner Kongs, in that case also including CK barrels for Cranky. But that means by adding Dixie Kong with this new update, functionally, DK barrels no longer exist in single player in Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. And that is so bizarre to me.
Yeah, I remember you posted what you originally said on Blue Sky was that DK barrels weren't in the game, but I I was actually what I had been doing was I was going through and like playing in multiplayer mode and then just killing Donkey Kong on purpose so I could play as Dixie Kong solo. So I was like, actually, Hyle, DK barrels are still in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just have to play 2-player, which is weird to me though that the DK barrels, they've become such an iconic and reliable bit of imagery for the series. When you look at the sheer glut of merchandise that bears the DK barrel in 2026, and the fact that it's now kind of hidden so much in this iconic milestone of a game that really set the visual style and tone for the Donkey Kong series from 2010 on. It's weird to me that now in what is going to be held up as the definitive version of the game, DK barrels have such a minor placement now.
Yeah, I mean, I saw somebody in the chat a while ago talking about how Dixie, she's super fun to play, but she does break a lot of the levels. She is very, I mean, the game was never designed with the ability to do this in mind, to,
yes,
be able to do the helicopter hair thing. And that is very clear. I would never use this option if it were available, but I still think it should be an option. I think that you should be able to, if you want to, select to just play like the original version of the game without her in it.
Yeah, so
as it is, the game does offer both what it calls a modern mode where you get 3 hearts. Are there any other changes in modern mode? I'm not sure. I haven't really played that one.
It's all of the stuff from Returns, like 3D, where it's like you get the ability to buy like green balloons from Cranky, and
right.
But yeah, like my only problem with this is, unlike Tropical Freeze, Returns was never designed to fit Dixie Kong. And that means there are challenges and items that kind of can be cheesed a little bit now that you have the ability to have that extra hair waft upwards that Diddy doesn't provide you with his jetpack. And it does, in some areas, if not break the tight, crunchy game design, then it definitely stretches it to its absolute limit. And all that being said, I don't think it completely breaks it. I think that is a bit hyperbolic.
That's true, yeah. I mean, it's DKC Returns is still going to be just an extremely fun and extremely challenging, for that matter, game.
Yeah, I don't think there were as many challenges or items in Returns where it's as immediately obvious as, say, Tropical Freeze that, like Dixie would make that so much easier. Dixie makes everything a little bit easier, yes, but I think it's okay. If you squint, it's okay. And I, too, would have preferred this be in either a new Dixie mode, or they just put Dixie in the modern mode and, allowed you the ability to play the game as it was traditionally released, with just Diddy as your partner character. Same way they did with Funky and Tropical Freeze for Switch.
Yeah, because what I was saying is, like, even whether you pick modern mode or classic mode, there is no way to, like, just play with DK and Diddy anymore.
Yeah.
Like, Dixie will always be an option. And also, unlike in Tropical Freeze, the DK barrels are always, the multi-select barrels. You can always get either Diddy or Dixie out of any of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a bit weird. It's a bit weird with that. And at the end of the day, like, I asked myself, is this wrong? Does this just feel like it is a slap in the face to history itself? And Yeah, maybe a little bit, but also it's Dixie Kong.
That feels a little hyperbolic to me.
Oh, okay. But it's Dixie Kong, and I can't be that upset when Dixie Kong is involved. You name your atrocity and you add Dixie Kong, and it'll go down a lot smoother for me.
That's true. I can definitely relate to that. It is funny, though, if you're playing optimally, like, this is the same problem that Tropical Freeze had, where, you know, Cranky was hard mode, and Dixie was, like, everything else. And so, functionally, as if you want to play optimally, Diddy Kong is basically just not in the game anymore.
Yeah, and, look, Diddy's my favorite character. Dixie is almost equal with him at this point in my life, but it is a shame that I'm never reaching for that DD barrel.
Right.
I'm always waiting that extra half second for it to flip around to become the DX barrel. And granted, it is...
Then Sean Waltman pops out of it.
Yeah, even though Dixie uses the X Factor colors. So anyway, I got everything I ever wanted, and I'll never give it back. But
I know you hate X Factor, but you don't got to look at me like that.
Diddy's my favorite character, but I'm never reaching for him. And honestly, thinking back to Tropical Freeze, I very rarely used him in Tropical Freeze either. I was always using Dixie or maybe Cranky for those few areas where Cranky was the preferable option.
Well, that's the thing. In Tropical Freeze, there were, you know, they sort of tailored certain levels or certain sections of levels around different partner Kongs. So you'd have barrels where you could only get Cranky out of it, you could only get Dixie out of it, you could only get Diddy out of it. So you saw more of a rotation. I'm noticing as I'm playing DKC Returns, like, okay, well, because I have two parallel games going with it right now. I'm replaying the game as normally on one file, and I'm replaying it, like I said, in multiplayer mode. Solo is Dixie in the other one. But the thing is, because of this, yeah, I just in the normal play mode, I just never see Diddy Kong anymore.
Yeah. And, like, thinking back to Tropical Freeze, there weren't really many or any challenges that were, like, just there for Diddy. I mean, yes, the way they kind of introduced the partner Kongs throughout the game. It's like, okay, here's Diddy's spotlight. But if you went back then with Dixie, there was never really any need to use Diddy. So this was a problem even in Tropical Freeze. I think it's just more pronounced here because you've also, you don't have Cranky as that third option. And again, this was never designed for Dixie's abilities in mind. But it's Dixie in Doggone Country Returns, and I love it. I love it, Joe. I don't care how inelegant it is. I don't care if it's painting a mustache on the Mona Lisa.
Yeah, I can criticize this from a game design perspective or whatever. But even then, even if it wasn't Dixie, I'd still say, well, I mean, that's not a big deal. It's okay. But
yeah,
the fact that it is Dixie Kong, like I said, I wish the option was there to just play as Diddy, but I would never use it. Because I want to be Dixie.
I just got done saying how much I'm like a cat. If you jangle keys nice and shiny above my head, I'm going to be batting at them and perfectly content. And then I'm probably going to lick myself and have a good time with it. So, this is just basically allowing me to play one of my favorite video game characters in a game I have loved for 16 years. And my biggest criticism with the game was the lack of returning characters. I really have nothing to be upset about here.
Yeah, I think if we can point to a quote unquote original sin here, it's probably just Tropical Freeze not buffing Diddy enough.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that if Tropical Freeze had made maybe his jetpacks last longer, so you get more horizontal movement out of a jump with them, then that would have been fine.
Yeah,
it's just as it was, Dixie gets just as much, if not maybe a little more, horizontal movement out of her jump, and she hovers upward. So
yeah, it's not like it is in Donkey Kong Country 2, for example, where there are tangible benefits to using Diddy in certain situations over Dixie. And I know most people will just say, well, Dixie's just so much better, but it's like, no, but, Diddy can climb faster, or,
right.
or the cartwheel jump, does have its advantages. And it all comes down to preferences.
Diddy holds barrels in front of him, which is a lot better for defense and a lot faster for that matter.
Yeah. So I think, I'm, of course, looking at it from a single-player perspective, too. So it's just the way these games are developed and the way they utilize the partner Kongs as kind of power-ups to Donkey Kong versus just standalone characters in their own rights. It is a shame that, Dixie just completely outclasses Diddy in every respect, in both Returns HD and Tropical Freeze.
Well, look, man, it was the 2010s. What are you going to do? Gatekeep, gaslight, girl boss.
So, the way they have added Dixie, it's both inelegant and also exactly the right call, in my opinion, because they were able to kind of seamlessly work her in most cases, because most of the so-called cutscenes in the game, like when the Kongs are approaching the boss of a world, they are just done with the in-game models. And so you can just put Dixie in there in Diddy's place, and it looks great. I love... God, what really jumped out at me, what really felt the most surreal to me, was the scene where Donkey Kong approaches Mowgli, the boss of the first world jungle. And that is the clip that they used in the original 2010 trailer at E3 for the reveal of Donkey Kong Country Returns. And it was that moment of Diddy and Donkey encountering Mowgli and doing their little pose seared into my brain, because that's where Diddy was confirmed for the game. Because we had seen, gameplay footage of Donkey Kong running around, and this was still relatively close to the Jungle Beat dramas of the mid-aughts. And so there's the question, is Diddy Kong going to be in this? And then we saw Diddy doing his little pose with Donkey, kind of flexing his biceps a little bit, getting in his fighting stance. And you're like, okay, Diddy is in the game. We're good. I don't care about anything else right now. I don't care about Animal Buddies. I don't care about Kremlings. Diddy's in the game. That's a step up from where we were with Jungle Beat. Cool.
Now, speaking of which, Mario versus Donkey Kong has just been confirmed for NSO. In terms of real Donkey Kong games, not this rare stuff. How do you think that ranks?
How do I think Mario versus Donkey Kong ranks compared to this game?
Yeah. Let's go with that.
I often get Gibbon upset with me for things I say on this podcast and on social media. And I don't need to get the season off on a bad foot with her. So I'm just going to not go there right now. I will say the remake is better. I like the remake better than the original. But yeah, seeing Dixie in Diddy's place in this very iconic shot was like, whoa, this is weird. This feels, again, like a fever dream. This feels like somebody went back in time and stepped on a butterfly, and now everything is screwed up. But, God, I loved it. And I love seeing Dixie and all of those boss encounters and seeing how, her react to, say, Mango Ruby. What? In 2010... in the context of the fandom in 2010, 2011, seeing Dixie Kong go toe to toe with Colonel Pluck, that would have felt unthinkable at the time.
Well, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't change the way that the timeline has gone if I could, because I just think getting Dixie in Tropical Freeze is just one of my favorite E3 memories.
The reveal of Tropical Freeze. We got Dixie
and
Kong.
Dixie made that. I would have been over the moon about it either way. But just the fact that Dixie Kong was in there.
We got Dixie Kong, and I would say the story of Donkey Kong fandom from 2010 on has been just a slow series of hard-earned victories. We got Diddy Kong back as Donkey Kong's partner in a Donkey Kong game. That's our first victory. We're going to rest on our laurels there. We're going to sleep soundly that night. We got Dixie Kong back in Tropical Freeze. David Wise is back in Tropical Freeze. We get Banjo and Kazooie's connection to Donkey Kong acknowledged in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. K. Rool is back in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And then, of course, Donkey Kong Bonanza bringing back everything that it brought back. You know, it just feels like, slowly...
We get one fun episode of Conker.
Yeah, Conker's big reunion. It was great.
You take what you can get there.
Take what you can get. But it has just been a slow reclamation of everything that had kind of been peeled away and everything that had been disparaged and dismissed during the buyout era. And so I wouldn't change that either. I will say I think Dixie maybe always deserved to kind of be here, just like she deserved, like she deserved to be in Donkey Kong 64. Like, I'm not saying this is just on Retro. This was on Rare too, back in 1999. But like, it's great to see Dixie here. It feels very natural. Just like in Tropical Freeze, it's surreal still to have Donkey and Dixie team together without that buffer of Diddy.
Yeah, like, you can say what you want about, like, how she affects the level design and how, I don't think that, like you said earlier, I don't think she breaks the game by any means, but it does make it a little easier. But in terms of, like, just her being there, she feels so much like she was always meant to be there.
Yeah. And again, this is the Tropical Freeze model, and with her, animations there. So it feels very familiar. This isn't like a complete mind fuck once you get used to it. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm playing Tropical Freeze, but I'm not playing Tropical Freeze. I'm playing Returns. But it's all pretty seamless except for the inelegant way they have gone about getting around the FMV cutscenes. Now, the FMV cutscenes, of course, they can't easily edit those. Those were done back in the day, back in 2010, and they were never done with Dixie Kong in mind. So, primarily, this is the arrival within Tiki Tong Tower and the reveal of Tiki Tong when he vomits on the Tiki Priest, and, they become his hands. And then
this is, we should be clear, this is extremely seamless except for this one part at the end of the game.
Yes. So there's that. There's arriving to Tiki Tong, and then there is the moment after Tiki Tong's defeat, the prelude to the Moon Punch that ends the game. And if you are riding the rocket barrel up Tiki Tong Tower to get to Tiki Tong, and you have Dixie Kong with you, and you make it with Dixie Kong, the way the team at Forever Entertainment SA have gotten around Dixie not being in the FMV and Diddy being there instead is they will use the animation from Tropical Freeze, or they really kit bash the animation from Tropical Freeze for the Kong Pow move. In Tropical Freeze, when you fill out your banana meter, and then Donkey Kong and his partner Kong can perform a Kong Pow, where they high-five each other in his big bombastic screen, and all the enemies on the screen become a certain item.
And you spend 99% of the game forgetting that mechanic exists.
Right. Well, they rework the Kong Pow to have Dixie tagging out to Diddy, and you've got, like, red balloons in the background, too, a bunch of stars, and, and so basically, you get to the top of Tiki Tong Tower, you fly inside its mouth, And then Dixie's like, "Oh, wait, Diddy, you should be here for this. Let me see myself out." And then she tags out Diddy. Or she tags out to Diddy, and she just goes away.
Right.
And it's so dumb, but it's also something I admire so much. Like, you could be of two minds about this and not be contradictory. This is dog shit, Josh, and I absolutely adore it at the same time.
I mean, I'm sure that given the budget they had and the time they had, this was the only thing they could really do. They weren't gonna re-render the FMV cutscenes, if indeed that even would have been an option.
Yeah.
That given how long it's been, they may have had to start just remake them from scratch if that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I think putting in a little just putting in a little something to explain it is still better than just, say, not acknowledging it at all. You just fade out with Dixie, and then you fade in and Diddy's there with no explanation.
No, absolutely. Like, I really do appreciate that they went to the effort, because a lot of times they wouldn't have. I mean, a lot of other cases, this would have just been, well, what do you want from us? We can't re-render this FMV video from a decade and a half in the past, so just pretend. But here, they're like, no, Dixie really wants her boyfriend to experience this elder tiki god spitting up on his henchman. And I appreciate that about Dixie,
Well, maybe Dixie just has, a pretty weak constitution for that sort of thing. Some people, if they see somebody else throw up, then it makes them nauseous. So maybe Diddy was just sort of being a good boyfriend there.
Maybe, yeah. Also, that's Diddy's fetish. That's what he's into. And Dixie's like, I'm not going to vomit on you, Diddy. But here, you know what? I promise, if we ever fight this ancient volcano god, and he starts to throw up, I'll let you bask in it.
I'll pass.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's hilarious. And of course, then you've also got the animation where it looks like, when you go back into the gameplay, it looks like Diddy's being raptured because he's just quickly getting yanked out of the screen to get Dixie back in there. It's fine.
Oh, I will say one thing where maybe Dixie being around does break it a little bit, but I think in a very fun way, is in the boss of World 4, the mole train.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you can do is, you start out, you're very far away from one of the moles and you have to dodge their projectiles. And then eventually your train cart catches up and connects to the other ones, and now you can do some damage. With Dixie, you can just roll jump across that chasm and basically skip every projectile dodging section of the boss, which is quite broken, but given how long some of these bosses take anyway, I appreciate that.
It is funny coming back to the retro games, after Bonanza, and I'm like, wow, these boss fights. I forget sometimes how long, drawn out, bombastic these boss fights are. Like, Bonanza, of course, had very, very scanty boss fights, save for the last one, which was an absurd, opera unto itself. But yeah, I'm like, wow, yeah, these are beefy, these boss fights.
Yeah, some are better than others, but the boss fights in general have always been probably my biggest criticism of the retro games.
That being said, I also appreciate when they hit right.
They do for sure. Yeah.
I think back to the Scowl boss fight in Tropical Freeze and just continually scaling upwards, and then you've got the David Wise music coming, and it just pumps you up continuously. So I'm fine with it. Sometimes they feel a bit self-indulgent, and yeah. But
well, they do the thing where you dodge the boss and then it reveals its weak point and then you hit it and then the cycle repeats. Those are the ones the ones that don't have enough of a break from that are the ones that really that just kind of feel like chores to play through.
Yeah.
The more dynamic ones, let's see, like the one where you are tossing bombs back at the chicken. I don't know their names because I'm not a
Colonel
true fan.
Pluck, Josh. Come on.
Thank you. Like I said, my general thing is just to get in there and get him over with.
Salute him for his service. All right.
Whenever I'm getting ready to stop playing one of the retro games, it's very typically like I've gotten to a boss and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and fight it because I don't want future Josh to have to deal with that first thing.
All right, let's see if I can do this. All right.
All right.
We got Mugly. We've got the Scurvy Crew. We've got Stu.
Let me pull up a list so I can check you because I don't know.
Yes,
okay, go ahead.
Stu is the big Breagle boss of World 3. We've got the Mole Train, the Mole Patrol, Mole Miner Max. We've got Mango Ruby. We've got.
Damn. I have no idea what that even is.
We've got Thugly. We've got Colonel Pluck. And we've got Tiki Tong.
You're missing one.
Missing one.
According to this, is this? Yeah, you're missing.
I said.
Oh no, Colonel Pluck.
Yeah,
you're right.
I said them all.
So, yeah, you did. Yeah, I got confused. I'm looking at the Super Mario wiki, which lists Colonel Pluck and Stompy Bot 3000 as two different things.
Mario wiki.
That's the same boss fight.
Come on now. Come on. So yeah, I was very happy with this. I was surprised, shocked, really, but then very happy with this reveal until the next day when it dawned on me. I was like, wait a second, wait. In all the excitement, I completely lost sight of what might be the biggest story to come out of this, Josh.
Mm-hmm.
This means the addition of Dixie Kong as a playable character in a version of Donkey Kong Country Returns means we technically have a new Kong character. You know where I'm going with this?
We technically have a new Kong character.
Yes, because Dixie Kong has been added to Donkey Kong Country Returns. That means introduced to the canon of Donkey Kong is the character of Super Dixie.
Oh shit! Yeah, I had not once considered that.
Yeah, you fail 5 times in a level in 2-player, and you go to Professor Chops, who's ringing his bell. Professor Chops will send in Super Dixie, the white-furred, blue beret-wearing Dixie Kong cosplayer super guide.
Now, how does this... Do you have any theories about how she may or may not relate to, say, purple beret, red-haired Dixie Kong from Donkey Kong Country 2?
Yeah, you're all about trying to come up with a headcanon for those 2-player contest versions, aren't you?
Well, my friends and I did come up with headcanon when we were kids about them, so yeah.
Yeah. I've never thought about it that deeply, but I have considered that they are friends to Professor Chops. They're all in-universe Donkey Kong fanatics, and Super Donkey Kong, Super Diddy, and now Super Dixie. They have studied the movements, the lives of these 3, and they know how to be them better than the actual Kongs know how to be themselves.
Well, how toxic of a fandom can it be if you're declaring yourself to be the super version of the thing that you're a fan of?
Oh yeah, I mean it's inevitably going to end with one of them trying to murder and replace the real one.
I'm Super Sean Waltman, and I'm doing the Super Bronco Buster.
This is going to end up, I think, as a really excellent plot for a future Donkey Kong game, where it turns out that the Diddy who has been with them the whole time is actually Super Diddy, and the real Diddy died a year ago.
We can get Eminem's Stan for the soundtrack.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, like Super Dixie, it's like that's weird, but cool. Yeah, like New Kong technically, like hot off the heels of Void, Poppy, and Grumpy, here comes Super Dixie.
Yeah, there's always that moment of like, I unlike some people, I was never like down on Professor Chops, our checkpoint, as we once called him. I still like that name better myself. But I will say, Nintendo games of that vintage of the Wii era, they do have that thing where it's like, you know, yeah, you die a couple of times and then this thing starts popping up being like, hey, do you need some help? And man, it's impossible not to have just a little moment of resentment there, you know? It's like, no, I do not need your help. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah. Consider Tropical Freeze did away with that. I mean, Tropical Freeze, it's amazing to me. Like, Tropical Freeze is so much a response to some fan criticisms of Returns. And a lot of those fan criticisms were just the new Super Mario Brothers-ification of Donkey Kong Country. And it's like, get that out of here. Get that. This is Donkey Kong Country. We don't need that shit in here. And I don't hate Professor Chops. For the record, Traveler of the Stars is with us, and I do not hate the character Professor Chops, but even Tropical Freeze started to rectify the issues with Professor Chops because, of course, in Returns, in the original version of Returns, he was just known as Tutorial Pig.
Yeah, giving him an actual name was nice.
Giving him an actual name, having the characters actually move around on the map screens. Like, Retro did listen to the most grumpy, inane fan complaints about Returns. And so, I mean, kudos to them. They weren't oblivious to them.
Well, and I think they did it in a way, because there's a danger there in listening to the fans sometimes. But I think that they did it in a way that addressed them without, like, compromising their vision or, like, totally going overboard with it and to the point that they were addressing things that only fans cared about or noticed and might have just been confusing or made it worse for everyone else.
Yeah. I agree. Like, generally, like, they should have put in Guard and Tropical Freeze. But I do like Returns and Tropical Freeze. I mean, I think they're both phenomenal platformers. And my biggest issue, of course, was that, you know, it felt like Returns in particular was keeping a lot of the series heritage at arm's length at times. And Dixie being in Returns just feels like, oh my god, like it just feels so natural to me. And having lived with this now for well over a month as this my new reality, you know, I'm like, I like when DK and Diddy are paired together. Obviously, because I became a fan with the original Donkey Kong Country, but Dixie should be viewed equally to the two of them. And this really does do that, in my opinion. Like, having Dixie in this game, not having Cranky there as a buffer or anything, just having Donkey, Diddy, and Dixie as the trio of this game, it really goes a long way towards righting some historical wrongs, not just with Returns, but again, with Donkey Kong 64. And other times, Dixie has been overlooked simply because, one, she was introduced in the sequel and therefore is not as iconic, or two, more negatively, more ugly because she's the girl one. And
well, as the meme was going around the time this launched, people were, you know, pointing out, you know, this makes it so Dixie is now playable in more Donkey Kong Country games than Donkey Kong is.
Josh, I've crunched the numbers, so here we go. So, yes, Returns HD, discounting her absence in the two previous versions of this game, this does put her back over Donkey and ties her once again with Diddy for most playable appearances in a Donkey Kong Country game. So Donkey Kong, of course, playable in Donkey Kong Country, playable in Returns, playable in Tropical Freeze. That's 3. Diddy, playable in DKC, DKC2, Returns, Tropical Freeze. That's 4. Mm-hmm. And Dixie, DKC2, DKC3, Returns, Tropical Freeze. Okay, so we all know that.
It's funny because Dixie was also before Returns, Dixie was playable in more Donkey Kong Country games than DK and Diddy. Or no, just DK.
Just DK, yeah. Just DK. So this really rights the historical wrong of Donkey Kong being the most played character in the Donkey Kong Country series. Like, no, get out of here, Donkey Kong. Because I've always maintained that Donkey Kong Country, right? The emphasis is on the country. It's not on the Donkey Kong. It's Donkey Kong Country. It's Donkey Kong's country. It's the Donkey Kong wilderness. You're not just going to run into Donkey Kong there. So anyway, moving beyond Donkey Kong Country though, if you're just counting mainline Donkey Kong games since Donkey Kong Country, then Diddy does still squeeze past Dixie since he's got Donkey Kong 64 to his name.
Right.
Donkey Kong is even past Diddy because he's got Donkey Kong 64, he's got Jungle Beat, and he's got Bonanza. So he's far and away in the lead if you factor in just all the mainline titles.
Okay, now, a little bit of a curveball here. What about Rambi?
Oh, well, that because where would we fall on Bonanza? Because in the Rambi Rumble, you're not actually riding the Rambi. You're riding a rhino referred to as a Rambi, but the real Rambi, the one Rambi we know, is with Cranky. So,
Does a Rambi... So the position we have is a Rambi is not Rambi.
Exactly. Yes. I'm steadfast on that. Like, okay. I'm not gonna go down this route of saying, well, any rhino referred to as a Rambi is good enough. It's like, no, Rambi is this dude right here. And for that matter, Squawks. You're not gonna refer to all these green parrots as Squawks and let me swallow that. I'm going to call the Squawks by Donkey Kong's Treehouse on Donkey Kong Island in Bonanza Fox, because he's a fake Squawks. And the Squawks with Void Kong holding that walkie-talkie, Squawky-talkie. Thank you very much. I take this stuff seriously, Josh. And
it's important to. Listen, somebody has to.
Look, there's only one Professor Chops, and all those other pigs that look like him, they're oinks. This stuff matters. Anyway, beyond just Dixie, though, they've added Turbo Attack Mode, which is yet another way to play the levels really fast. Have you tried out Turbo Attack Mode at all, Josh?
So the way that this was initially presented to me, because like I said, I was streaming Metroid Prime 4 when this trailer came out. So what somebody in the chat said was like, oh my god, they updated DKC Returns, and it's like the Josh update. Because they added a way to play the game super, super fast, and they put my favorite Donkey Kong character in it.
Oh, so it's like Sonic now, because you go really fast, and you've got a character that has the fluttering appendage on their back.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's like they made this update for me specifically, and that's really cool. I've been on a little bit of a journey with DKC Returns because I always really, really, really loved it. I was even before Tropical Freeze, I was never as down on it as some people were. Not that people were like super, super down on it generally, but a lot of the criticisms that people had back then, I think I was like, well, yeah, I can see that. Like, that would be nice, but like, it wasn't as big of a deal to me. When Tropical Freeze came out, of course, I, like everyone else, sort of echoed the whole, okay, well, this is, like, Returns was great, and this is even better. And I think the conclusion that I've come to, and in fact, DKC Returns HD playing that last year was what sort of started to solidify this for me, was I actually think I like Returns better than Tropical Freeze. Not saying Tropical Freeze isn't phenomenal, but I think I like Returns more.
I completely respect that opinion because I do think that Returns does some things better than Tropical Freeze. And I said this on the episode I did with Matt last year. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what Returns HD has allowed me to remember. What I really liked about Returns that Tropical Freeze got away from or maybe didn't execute as soundly. Not to say I dislike Tropical Freeze now or that I like Returns more than Tropical Freeze. For me, I think Tropical Freeze is still far and away my favorite of the two, but I do think Returns gets dismissed or shit upon a little bit too much.
Well, I mean, I think Tropical Freeze is better in terms of aesthetics. It's better in terms of visual design and visual variety, for that matter, and just having, I think, a little bit better and more unique level archetypes. Mm-hmm. And of course, in terms of, character representation, series representation, having the characters, actually appear and walk around on the map screen and all that stuff. It's just, for me, the most important thing is, like, the level design and the gameplay, and especially the replay value. And I think the fact that the level design in Returns the levels tend to be a little bit shorter and a lot more focused. Like, Tropical Freeze, I love Tropical Freeze. Again, I'm not trying to disparage it, but when I play it, like, I find that it gets a little bit taxing after a while, just because it's like every level seems to go on for a very, very long time. Whereas in Returns, it has more of that sort of like, okay, here's the concept, and here's a bunch of fun challenges to do with the concept, and that's it. And now you move on to something else.
Brevity is the soul of wit.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why in the long run, I've sort of come around, and as if I wasn't already like sort of moving in that direction in terms of my opinion, Dixie Kong, who again is my personal favorite Donkey Kong character, her being added to it along with a turbo mode is just like, okay, well, they put it over the top now. There is no question anymore.
I wish I could say I like Turbo Attack, but the problem is I never liked Time Attack. I never liked the regular time trial mode in either of these games. Turbo Attack, everything is super, super fast. It's like all of the characters have taken amphetamines. I think I said in my news article, maybe this is what burning DK does to you. The beverage, the energy beverage that Donkey Kong is shilling in Mario Kart 8. Maybe this is what it does to your body and everybody's just like super high on cocaine and just like a runaway freight train. But I don't like the way these are structured. I've never liked the way these are structured. I know this isn't some Professor Chop's bias that I'm projecting because he's the one who facilitates these. I don't really like modes like this in particular. I'm not a speedrunner. You know that about me, Josh. You know how I like to just take my sweet ass time and savor the world, no matter how digital and artificial that's around me. And yeah, these modes, I feel like they're so punishing. And there's like...
They are very punishing.
There's one way to do it right. There's like... There's a method, and if you don't get that right, well, you've got to start all over again. But the way they even structure that is you've got to exit completely.
That is my biggest problem with Time Attack, is that when you lose, it doesn't reset the timer. It takes you back to the beginning. But, like, why not reset the timer? There's no scenario in which you're going to want to just keep going after that.
And I think what's really made me realize how much not hate's too strong a word, but just this isn't
not for you.
This isn't for me.
Right.
Is Emerald Rush. Because Emerald Rush, I think is really put into focus my biggest problem with these modes, be they Time Attack or Turbo Attack, in the retro duology, and that's how limited in scope they are. Like, there's that straightforward speedrunning strategy, and one slip up and you're done. It's impossible to recover. And I look at Emerald Rush, which is a timed mode. Obviously a little bit different in execution. It's got that roguelike aspect to it, but there you can adapt and develop your strategy as you go, and a setback isn't disqualifying. And it's been really fun getting better at Emerald Rush, and these Emerald Rush events have really like helped me kind of grow as a player and not just rely on the same exploits or strategies, but actually see like, okay, well, you know, I've got this perk. Maybe I explore this a little bit, or this isn't working for me. What can I do really quickly to turn things around? And, you know, you get that like visceral thrill of just making it past, just making it like right before the deadline hits, and you just get over your quota and you're like, phew, okay, I can keep going. It's engaging to me, somebody who doesn't like speedrunning, because I feel like it's leaning on all of my abilities that I've cultivated playing Bonanza up until that point. And
there is a strategy you can develop, but it's not the only strategy that works necessarily. I mean, some of the Emerald Rush events, I feel like there is definitely something that you really need to lean on.
The events, for sure. I'm just talking about traditional Emerald Rush. Like, the events are really, you're supposed to do it this way. But even then, they give you a little bit of wiggle room. And like comparing notes with the Idaho crew, for example, it's like, oh, you did it that way? Well, I did it this way.
Well, I think another thing that hurts Time Attack in Returns and Tropical Freeze is that the time requirements for even gold medals, I know there's sparkly gold beyond that, but even just the gold medals are so incredibly tight.
Yeah.
Like, and of course, there's no, like, reward incentive for actually doing them, for that matter. As hard as they are, I don't think there should be. But
right. But for the sweaty little completionist in all of us, it is kind of dispiriting when you can't get that shiny gold.
Yeah.
But
no, I am very much a speedrunner type of person generally.
Yeah.
But I've never gotten most of the Time Attack medals in either game myself.
And I'm not asking them to add a slow mode where like it rewards you for the most amount of time you can faff about in a level. Like, that's nonsense. I fully admit that, but you know, it's just not for me. And I love the kinetic flow of the Donkey Kong Country games, like all 5 Donkey Kong Country games. I saw in the chat they were bringing up Barrel Maze. So you didn't consider Barrel Maze? Like, well, nobody's playable in Barrel Maze. You use a remote control barrel. Like, okay.
Well, who's controlling the remote control?
Well, Donkey Kong. So I guess Donkey Kong's playable in that one. Kind of.
Now, do we know for sure that it's Donkey Kong?
You've got to get the barrel to Donkey Kong at the, like, endpoint of each world. So I'm guessing Donkey Kong is controlling the barrel.
Are we sure it's not Fred Flintstone?
No, because Barrel Maze came first.
Right.
We've established that. But anyway, again, Turbo Attack, not for me. It's cool that it's there, and it's also cool that it gives people another reason to replay all the levels with this update.
It does feel like, I do enjoy it. It does definitely feel a little bit like, I don't know, like something that you might see out of a ROM hack, I guess.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel especially well considered, in that what it's really doing is just playing the game at like 2x speed, and everything, the enemies, the Kongs, the hit reactions, everything just moves twice as fast. I do think it's fun. It takes some getting used to, and the thing about it is, like, once you do get used to it and you kind of adapt to it, then you go back and try to play the game without it, and now it feels like you're moving in slow motion. So there's like an adjustment period in both directions.
Sure, yeah. To be fair, though, I feel like Dixie Kong being playable in the game also feels like a ROM hack.
It kind of does, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this was when Returns HD was announced, like, you know, one of the main things I was hoping for, main thing was the monster games, DKC Returns 3D bonus levels. We got those. The other thing was, like, it seems like it probably wouldn't be that much work to get, you know, Cranky and Dixie in there, or Funky Kong for that matter. And so if we were going to get any of them, I'm really glad we eventually got Dixie, and I wasn't expecting that, especially not a year after the game came out.
And, you know, I think Cranky would have been too hard to implement, especially considering he's running the shop in this game.
Yeah, and plus his, like, you really need level design adapted for his ability.
Yeah. Yeah, so if we are retconning Dixie Kong into the events of Returns, I like that, like, she was there in this adventure, and Cranky was the one who had to step up in Tropical Freeze and join the team. So, it works for me. And of course, you know, they have fixed the big bug that everyone was complaining about, jumping off the same enemy in co-op. You can now do it. And that really won over a lot of folks who, you know, I never agreed that this was a bad port of the game. I thought that was over the top. And I think, like, I'm somebody who can look at flaws and not have them be a deal breaker. In some ways, flaws make something more beautiful, Josh. But it is good that they fixed it. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's sometimes, you know, there's other YouTubers out there, and sometimes people will be like, "Oh, I can't stand that guy. He's so cynical. He's so negative. He's not like you, Josh. You're more positive and upbeat." And I'm like, yeah, but if there weren't people like that in the world, then I would never notice this shit. And so it wouldn't get fixed. So it's not entirely a bad thing.
I think there's just balance to be had.
There's a balance, exactly.
Like, and I think
the people who were out there grifting about how the Nintendo doesn't care and is lazy and this is bullshit. It's like, yeah, you can take it over the top, but at the same time, it's good to be aware of this stuff. It's good that people are pointing it out.
I think what keeps me balanced is I keep up on current events. I doom scroll the news, and so that keeps things into perspective for me. I'm like, oh yeah, my little monkey game doesn't really matter, does it?
See, I think that way, and then I'm like, but at the same time, I feel like a part of the reason that people do get so invested and angry about some of this stuff is almost as sort of a reaction to, well, we can't do anything about, you know, these terrible real life calamities.
Yeah.
So let's focus on what it feels like we do have a little bit more power over.
I mean, to be fair, it's been working for us. Got K. Rool back, got Donkey Kong back as an established brand, got the Virtual Boy back. Why can't I actually make the world a better place? Why am I focusing all my attention on this nonsense? So, my question though, Josh, why wasn't any of this included at launch on January 16th, 2025? Why are we getting it now?
Ooh, are we getting into the theory crafting?
Theory crafting, let's go. Let's do it.
Okay, so the game was probably not rushed, but I mean, all games are rushed to some degree, right? There's no game out there that gets literally all the time and budget and attention that it needs. Everything has to be cut in some way.
Even the new Grand Theft Auto game is rushed in some respects.
Even Metroid Prime 4 is rushed in many respects, in fact.
Yeah.
But the fact that some of the 3DS problems were still in there, some of the visual bugs, tells me that it probably wasn't quite in the state that they wanted it to be at launch. And I think it needed to come out when it did, because it needed to be able to have, well, for one thing, no matter what coming out when it did, it was going to get overshadowed by the Switch 2 announcement.
Yes. So,
but I think they wanted it to have some time in the spotlight before they announced Bonanza.
Right. So it came out January 16th, which was the same day they first previewed the Switch 2 with that little
Right.
glimpse of Mario Kart World and the redesign of Donkey Kong. Like, that is the day they really started rolling out the Donkey Kong redesign. And so we didn't know that Bonanza was going to be announced on the day of the April 2nd Switch 2 Direct, but like, Nintendo knew, okay, we've got a very limited window here. We want this to tie in with theme park. We're going to have this bigger Donkey Kong game be announced. Bigger in the respect that this is the third release of a 2010 game. Not saying that Bonanza is so much superior to Donkey Country Returns. Donkey Country Returns is so, like I said, foundational in the history of this series. But Bonanza's going to make,
for that matter, foundational to a lot of its fans at this point.
Yeah. So, but it just, Bonanza is going to make far bigger waves compared to Returns HD coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So they were crunched for time, but they also had to have it out for the theme park, which had just come out, just opened in Japan and was opening in a few months in the United States. And so there was all of that. And so it was like, once Bonanza is announced, and especially once Bonanza is released, Returns HD is really going to be receding into the shadows. So let's give it a year. Let's wait a year. And then once, Bonanza has kind of settled into this DLC cycle of these monthly events, and, it's kind of not the new hotness. And it's become kind of routine for the Donkey Kong audience that's out there. We're going to hit them with this big new update. And I think, like you said, a lot of people were saying when Returns HD was announced in the summer in the Northern Hemisphere, that is, of 2024, that it was already done and they were just sitting on it. I don't think it was done yet. I think that was, again, hyperbolic.
If I remember right, I think that original trailer was like more reminiscent of the 3DS version. Like, it was missing quite a few visual effects that were in the final release.
Yeah. And this isn't just like upscaling the 3D version. I think this was done in Unity. Like, I think they took the 3D version, but it wasn't just we're like putting some filters on it so it doesn't look like a 3DS game. So yeah, I think you're right. Like, it was rushed in some respects. They got it to a working state. Obviously, they missed some things like the bug. But as they were doing it, as they were going in, and like, they didn't want to do the big switch to improvements, like the increased resolution, with the other Switch 2 improvements that, came out around the time of the Switch 2's launch, because they were like waiting on this because they got the idea, hey, while we're at it, what if we add Dixie Kong?
Yeah, that's so what I think happened, what I imagine happened. If obviously we weren't in there, we don't know for sure, but I think had Bonanza just say not been a thing, or say it needed another year, or it wasn't going to be announced, I think it's quite possible that we would have gotten an update for DKC Returns much sooner that fixed the multiplayer bug and added the missing visual effects. And probably then, in that case, it would have also gotten a Switch 2 upgrade at or around the Switch 2 launch. But because of Bonanza, Nintendo didn't want to release, didn't want anything else Donkey Kong related to overshadow that. So I think that actually worked out for the best, because like you said, maybe that's why they had the time to implement Dixie.
Exactly. Yeah, I think Bonanza, basically it's all the chickens coming home to roost at once for the Donkey Kong series. All of this stuff that has been in the pipelines, in the works, is all ready to go at once. And so they have to stagger. What a wonderful problem for a series to have. I'm not used to it. But yeah, so that's why we got it basically at the somewhat arbitrary date of a year after release. And I mean, it makes sense to me. And I know people think that Nintendo just does things, that like things happen out of Nintendo as if it's an uncontrollable force of nature. But everything they've been doing with the DK brand this decade has been extremely deliberate. There is a plan at work here. And even something like this has been considered quite heavily. So, by the way, I wrote an article on DK Vine during the hiatus called Donkey Kong's Back is Back. And it's about what Nintendo is doing with the Donkey Kong series and how this long-term plan to rebuild it is now paying off. I think I wrote it before the Dixie Kong announcement, but it's still applicable to this. And this is still part of their plan. I think you're right, this was in the cards for a while, but they had to wait. And they waited until it was just past the 1-year anniversary of Returns HD to say, hey, surprise. It's basically a whole new game.
It's also very nice, given the precedent that certain other Switch 2 games have set, is that this was a free update for the Switch 2.
Absolutely, yeah.
Especially because, there was already some discourse, let's say, about DKC Returns itself being a $60 game, considering, it was 15 years old, and the Wii version was originally launched at $50, since that was the retail price at the time. And just being able... And by the way, the Switch 2 version looks and runs absolutely phenomenally. Like, I was already with you that Returns HD, even in its previous form, was the best version of the game. But
right.
Now this is absolutely the definitive version. This is everything I ever wanted in DKC Returns.
If you really want to blow your little mind, Josh, go back and look at footage of Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Wii, running on an original Wii, and just be like, what? That's the way it used to look? It doesn't feel that long ago. Like 2010, for the both of us, that just feels like last week in some respects, but God.
Speak for yourself, old man. 2010 seems like a long-ass time ago to me.
All right, baby. I was lumping you in too much with my age group, but I think it's just because...
No, we ain't that far apart. It's just, I don't know. I have a very distinct sense of time, I think. Like, my memories are... sort of, I seem to organize my memories very chronologically, so I'm always very aware, like, those little meme images come out, like, be like, do you feel old yet? It's been X number of years since the Powerpuff Girls debuted. And I'm like, no, I know that. I'm very aware of that.
I think 2010 for me, it's the year after I moved back from Los Angeles, so it really is like the starting point for my current state of existence.
Right.
It's the year I returned to DK Vine and really just like focus my energies on DK Vine. It's the year we got Donkey Kong Country Returns, and like so much of where I am now is rooted in that year. So for me, like, it feels very current still, even though we are so far away from it.
Yeah, but also for me, that was the year that I went back to college and actually was good at it and serious about it. That was 3 relationships ago.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was a while back.
Well, speaking of timelines, speaking of when things took place in our lives, let's talk about the lore of this and the implications. Where does Returns HD take place on the Donkey Kong timeline? I don't think it's that complicated. I honestly don't. I'm not coming in here. Don't worry. I'm not coming in here guns blazing saying, oh, actually, this proves that Returns HD is a separate canonical adventure. Because I know I have this reputation, right? I know I have argued in the past, and I do still maintain a lot of this, that certain remakes or ports are sometimes separate adventures.
If I remember right, I think the idea is that DKC for Game Boy Color is a separate adventure, and DKC for Game Boy Advance is not.
So let me go down the list here. The times I've argued this in the past: Donkey Kong Land 2. Okay.
100% agree with that one.
Thank you. I've sometimes argued it for Donkey Kong Country for the Game Boy Color, because I feel like that incorporates so much of Donkey Kong 64 in it that it feels like the Donkey Kong Land to Donkey Kong 64. I don't always argue this, Josh. It just depends how frisky I'm feeling on that particular day. Diddy Kong Racing DS, separate canonical adventure. Teenage Tiny is there. You can't get around it. And Nintendo of America also released promotional postcards for the game that actually explicitly said it takes place 10 years after the original Diddy Kong Race. So I argued...
I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I've argued the XBLA versions of Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie are just the Lord of Games making the characters relive those events because of all the references to nuts and bolts within. The Super Pocket Rare Edition of Banjo-Kazooie, more on that later, separate canonical adventure. And I think Returns HD, though, I think it's just Donkey Kong Country Returns, and we're just privy to more information than we had in 2010.
Yeah, I would say that. I would say that checks out.
There is the problem of Donkey Kong playing a Switch and his idle animations here. Yeah, it's a bit weird for 2010, right? Like, that's jumping ahead 2 console generations. How does he have a Switch? Maybe he has a prototype Switch. Maybe it's not a Switch. It just looks like a Switch. It's some other device, like those off-brand handhelds that like rare characters would sometimes play in the Xbox years.
Well, I guess the thing that would get me about that, because, okay, is the position that DKC Returns is happening, one, in basically what is equivalent to our reality, and 2, in the year 2010.
I think so, because all the characters were talking about the end of Lost. They don't really do that if it's 2011 or later.
Hyle, the characters in these games don't. What? Do you hear them?
You don't?
Are you the only one who can hear them?
Maybe I should be worried about that.
Maybe.
I don't know. Yeah, don't worry though. I'm not coming in here in my like wild-haired mad professor frenzy and trying to say this is a separate adventure. No, it's just Dixie was always there. We just never really saw.
I think that's it.
We just never really saw her. She's always kind of been on the margins of this adventure, and this is just widening that peephole that we got into the game, into the adventure, into the experience. And I like that Dixie was always there, because that was one thing I always wondered playing Returns is, so this ancient cult has returned from the molten core of Donkey Kong Island, and they've hypnotized all the wildlife of Donkey Kong Island, and Donkey and Diddy are setting out and all that. But wouldn't Dixie be doing something about this too? Where's Dixie?
Yeah, like we can like understand that it's likely that all of the Kongs are somewhere participating in the adventure just off screen, or
right,
having their own versions of the adventure.
I mean, maybe they're just, not bothering though. Like Chunky,
that's true too.
Chunky Kong, it just keeps hitting snooze. He doesn't want to deal with it. Even though his, pet parakeet is trying to peck out his eyes because it's been hypnotized by Kalimba.
Sure.
And look, Dixie also has an animatronic in the Donkey Kong Country theme park. She is the first thing you see riding Minecart Madness. And I like that, given how heavily that is based on Returns, except for things like, we have Dixie there, and we got the Funkies flying by as the gift shop. I like that now Dixie is part of the Donkey Kong Country Returns story. It feels natural. It feels right. It feels like it's just rectifying a wrong from over 15 years ago.
Yeah, and like I said, if it's going to be anyone, I'm really, really, really glad it's her. Not just because she's my favorite DK character, but also just because I think she deserves that level of importance and that level of prestige. And also, I've just heard from a lot of people who like, oh, my, like I'm playing this game with my daughter, and she's so happy to just have like a character like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's why Dixie is such a great character, is that she's just a kick-ass girl who like that's always been what makes her so cool. It's like not even a big deal. It was never presented as a big deal that, oh yeah, here's a playable girl character. It's just been, here she is. You got a problem with it? Fuck off. And it's still refreshing. Even 30 years on from her debut, it's still very refreshing. Just Andre says, Dixie was busy fending off the Easterling invasion at Erebor. God, I hate that I know that reference.
Is that Lost?
It's The Hobbit.
Yeah, okay. I think I know even less about that than I do Lost.
Those movies did have several actors from Lost in them, though.
You
got Charlie. He plays Mary, the Hobbit. Anyway, we've got some calls to take, Josh. Oh my God.
Let's do it.
So once again, we are getting so many calls per episode. We got 15 for this one. I cannot play 15 calls. I am sorry. So once again, I am selectively playing the calls that come in at 1-202-630-VINE. It's 8463. The DK Vine hotline, still active, still running. So yeah, I pared this down to 7 calls. Please do not be offended if you called in and I did not play your call. I had to draw a line. So, I did like weed out the ones who were just doing bits. Sorry. Sometimes bits are great. Sometimes we just don't have the time to indulge. So,
hey, this is Chunky Kong. Why wasn't I put in the game?
Hi, Hyle. I want to tell you why you're wrong about the ending to Lost. All right, so this first call came in the day they announced this. Somebody just couldn't wait. They called into the hotline. The other 6 calls we're going to play came in after I announced this episode. So why don't we go ahead and play the first caller of the season? Who could it be? Who could it be?
Hello, DK Vine. This is Traveler of the Stars calling in about the Donkey Kong Country Returns HD Shadow Drop update. Hyle, you're looking great. I'm just going to jump right into it. I called right after this was announced, gushing grannies, or I guess to make it appropriate to returns, gushing geysers about the update, but I wanted to call back, amend the call to sort of focus more broadly. You know, as of course, I think it's fair to say I'm probably the most outspoken, member of the community about the retro duology. Certainly one of them, I feel like it's one of its strongest advocates. This update's great. I loved Returns HD, but I recognize it had some wrinkles. I still thought it was definitely the most definitive way to play the game. For me, the loading times are the most glaring thing about the game that annoyed me, but I'm happy that this update seemingly ironed out everything, the loading times, the multiplayer stuff, some visual stuff. It's great. Obviously, so Dixie Kong is the biggest focus, and, I'm sure that you and your co-host have talked well enough about it during the episode, but I just kind of want to talk about implications. Dixie Kong's placement in the series has been secure since 2014. Hyle, I know you and I agree on that. I think the people, for example, who are like, oh, she's not an 8 Deluxe, so we gotta worry again. Nope, she's not playable. Bonanza, we gotta worry again. I think they're being silly. Sorry, but I just think you're being silly. But I think with this update, this has solidified her as a 2D DK mainstay. And so what I want to mean by that is, how Luigi is a mainstay in Super Mario Brothers? He has a similar frame to Mario, body type, he has some nuances, but he's always in a Super Mario Brothers game. I think Dixie's always going to be in a 2D DK game. And I think what helps is that she has a similar body to Diddy Kong. And Diddy Kong are probably always going to have in a 2D DK game. And as, 2D Mario has been expanding its playable characters, I think Dixie just makes sense that, she's always going to be there in a 2D DK game. So that's really exciting, I think. I feel pretty confident about that. But going forward, I'm thinking about kind of future games that, because we got Dixie in Returns, and we didn't think we could get that, but I'm thinking of games like Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, where an old game got some new content added on to it. That was pretty substantial. And I'm thinking of Tropical Freeze and maybe even Jungle Beat. Tropical Freeze, I think, will get a Switch 2 update, at the very least enhanced resolution. Hyle, it's an old game, but again, it could get new content like 3D World. I don't know what it'll be, but maybe some plus content. Or Jungle Beat. As DK is a bigger series now, Nintendo is going to stretch it, out mainline releases, new ones, with some remasters. And Jungle Beat could fit the bill. I definitely think the DK bongos could be reissued if a Virtual Boy accessory was. I definitely think Jungle Beat will get that, even if it's just for an NSO release. But if it's a full-fledged release, I could see some plus content to add in Diddy Kong and Dixie and other characters. So just a thought. Oh, and you have a polite porker to think about.
Just cut off there. But thank you, Traveler of the Stars. Ordinarily I would...
You are looking great.
Yeah, thank you. I would ordinarily say, there's no way they're going to touch Tropical Freeze again. We got the definitive release of Tropical Freeze on the Switch. It's done. It's in the past. Jungle Beat, they did new play control Jungle Beat on the Wii. I do think that we will get Jungle Beat on NSO eventually, and I think, the DK Bongos will probably be reissued as a little boutique item you can get from Nintendo's website. I completely agree there. I mean, they've been upping the patent on it for a reason, so eventually, sure, absolutely. But then again, who the hell knows anymore?
That's true.
We could get a version of Jungle Beat that also finally has playable Diddy and Dixie, and why not? At this point in time, I think the only limits to what's possible for the Donkey Kong series are A, our imagination, and B, what's still owned by Rare. So,
yeah. And
even then, that's just a phone call and a contract away from resolving. So,
I think a Switch 2 update for any Switch 1 game is possible. I think the more recent it was, the more possible it is, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, a Tropical Freeze, at least to bump the resolution and loading times would not surprise me.
Yeah,
I really hope we get it.
I think they've already fussed with that game enough. I don't think we would have anything to this level.
No,
here's Lanky Kong and Tropical Freeze, finally. But
and I also agree with his first point that Dixie's place in the series is very secure now.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think we're going to be getting any more Donkey Kong games without her.
I think it's important. A lot of people focus on Bonanza that Diddy and Dixie weren't playable, but the fact that they were there at all and they had a whole world just based on them, and they have such a looming presence in the DLC, I think that really illustrates where the priorities are for the series going forward. That Diddy and Dixie are pillars at this
point.
Agreed.
Bonanza went out of its way to spotlight them.
Yeah. And really, that would have gone a long way in something like Jungle Beat back in the day. That would have really soothed a lot of nerves, So I don't have any concerns about Dixie at this point in time. And definitely in the next 2D game, she's going to be playable. She is going to be there with Donkey and Diddy, and we might have Cranky, might have Funky. It could be just a whole chain of characters, Lanky and Chunky and...
Oh yeah, what I am really hoping for, and one reason this Emerald Rush is giving me so much hope, is that we're getting all these new 3D models of characters that we haven't seen in such a long time. So it's what are you gonna do with these? Are you... is this building to something?
Look, I don't want every single Donkey Kong character to be at every single Donkey Kong game.
That wouldn't be sustainable.
I just love the possibilities. I just love that we are back in an era where everything is back on the table. And you might get Wrinkly and Swanky in this game, and you might get Ninja Kong and Professor Chops in this game. It doesn't matter. Nothing is being held at arm's length anymore. And, Yeah, new games, updates to old games, new versions of old games. Traveler of the Stars said March Rose pitched in the chat, adding In Guard to Tropical Freeze as a little treat. Sure, why not? I think this would have been unthinkable a year ago. And I think where we're at now in a post-Bonanza world, where we're still reaping the benefits of Bonanza and all the exciting surprises that the Emerald Rush events are providing, I think that I'm at the point now where I'm just not much would surprise me.
It's also just very nice to know that, even though Bonanza gave us this, new modern interpretation of Donkey Kong's design and the designs of the characters and a lot of some of the world elements, even that, the previous games aren't just being swept under the table or ignored.
And that's also very important because it does feel like every time there has been that signaling of a new era for the series, there has been that somewhat history starts here mentality. And of course, when Rare soft rebooted the series in 94, it was right off on the heels of Donkey Kong 94 for the Game Boy. So you had those two concurrent takes on Donkey Kong existing at the same time, but
and he literally knocks Cranky down off of the girders.
yeah, there was that attitude.
This is not your father's Donkey Kong.
Yeah, there was that attitude in Rare's Donkey Kong games where times are changing, Grandpa. Right. And then we had Donkey Kong Country Returns, which really pared things down, and then it was just do you think we'll ever see Dixie again? I was always more optimistic than some, but I do remember those arguments from 2010 to 2013 of, is Dixie just permanently retired? Seems ludicrous now to look back on it, but that's where the fandom's headspace was, and we didn't have the benefit of future hindsight then, so.
Right. And, I think not that she even needs it, it doesn't feel like at this point, but if she was in Smash Brothers, I think that would even further secure her place.
Yeah. Traveler of the Stars, who is with us in the chat, says, Hyle, do you have any speculation as to why we haven't gotten Tropical Freeze's Switch 2 update yet? Maybe to act as a stopgap at some point. Well, it also depends. Is Forever Entertainment SA going to handle the update? Is Retro going to do it? They've both been busy, so it could just be they haven't gotten to it because it hasn't been a priority, because it is an older Switch release.
I think that's probably the major thing. Yeah. Is that I'm not saying it won't happen. It totally could, but most of the games that have gotten Switch 2 updates, especially out past the initial launch window, have been much, much newer than that. You got to remember, Tropical Freeze came out in 2018, I believe. Mm-hmm. So quite a long time ago now.
And it's an older release, and it is, from a 2014 Wii U game. Mm-hmm. And, Returns HD was a newer release at the tail end of the original Switch's time as the primary Nintendo console. So, I doubt there would be new content, but again, you never know.
Just getting that resolution and loading time bump would be such a boon, though, and I really, really do hope that happens.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for the call, Traveler. Let's go ahead and play our second caller.
Hello, Hyle. Hello, Josh. First of all, cheers to the start of a new season. I always miss the Kongversation when it's gone. It's something to look forward to on a weekly basis. It's the little things like that makes the day-to-day grind more bearable. There's nothing else on the horizon otherwise. That's enough about that. I'm calling about Dixie. She came out of nowhere, and that was a pleasant surprise. For free, too. That's not something we're used to. But there's something about Diddy and Dixie in Returns and Tropical Freeze that I've been meaning to talk about for a while. don't they feel different in their behavior compared to how they used to be in DKC 2 and 3? I think it's more blatant with Dixie in particular. She used to act cool and blasé in her animations, while in the retro games she's out there striking poses, giggling and overall being more joyful. I came up with my own explanation for it, being that Didi and Dixie were teenagers at the time of the Rare trilogy, and as teens, you want to look cool and have attitude. In the retro games, Didi and Dixie are essentially adults, even if they look the same physically for the most part. They're at a point of their lives where they have nothing to prove anymore, and they're no longer scared of being earnest, and they're embracing the more silly side of themselves. That's my interpretation, at least. I'm curious to see if DK Vine has ever addressed, or at least what your opinion on that shift in behavior is. That's all. Have a good rest of episode.
Well, thank you so much for the call. I believe it's Emma. And see, I can remember names occasionally.
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's your interesting point, because for me, one of the things I've maintained is that retro got Dixie spot on, in my opinion, because she is the one who, out of all of them, loves the thrill of the adventure the most, and she almost craves it in a pathological sense, whereas like Donkey is a little bit lazier, and Diddy like wants to be the hero, but he's like uncertain and unsure sometimes.
Well, he's initially uncertain, and then he just becomes self-aggrandizing and obnoxious about it.
Dixie is just like again, I bring up when the Snowmads roll in at the beginning of Tropical Freeze. Dixie's the only one who looks happy that it's happening. She's like, this is great.
Finally, I get to be in a game again.
This is great. This is gonna be one, like, grueling adventure. I'm all for this. And, yeah, like, she is, like, more animated in the retro duology now. And I think part of that is also just practical limitations on the Super Nintendo versus the Switch or the Wii U and the Switch 2 now. I think that, you know, Rare could only do so much in the way of animations with her, and maybe she did come off as a little bit more detached and, you know, I'm just gonna blow these bubbles here on this pirate hideaway island. But I don't know, it never felt like two disparate interpretations to me.
Well, also to their point, it's like what was cool, like hyper specifically 1995 mid 90s cool was that sort of blasé, to use that word, like I don't really give a shit. Like like if you care about anything too much, that's not cool. That's the cringiest thing you can possibly do.
Sure.
So, in as much, I never saw Dixie that way myself, but, you know, I was too young in 1995 to be very aware of what cool was at the time.
Yeah.
But I would say that might be part of it.
Yeah, just Andre says, Dixie's all good with the Snowman invasion because she's the only one of the 4 playable Kongs who doesn't experience shrinkage from the cold. Why did I read that? Sorry.
Why did you read that?
I don't know, because I just say, I should read a comment. It's about time I read a comment from the chat. And then I just start, and I don't see the end until I get there. And then I'm like, well, that was a mistake.
Speaking of Tropical Freeze, welcome back to the Kongversation 2014.
No, but I think
Have you seen this? Have you heard about this?
I think Bonanza does a good job of splitting a difference by bringing back some of her animations from Country 2. specifically blowing the bubbles and drinking the drink. Drinking the little soda in our hand, and
the juice box.
It's not a juice box. Bonanza shows it's a fountain beverage. Anyway,
no, I just mean in DKC 2. My interpretation. I think I got this from like a magazine. It might have been Nintendo Power. It might have been one of the several dozen guidebooks that I had about DKC 2 as a kid. But I always interpreted it as a banana milkshake specifically.
Oh, okay. Well. Maybe. But remember, one of the guidebooks to Diddy Kong Racing called Banjo a dog.
That wasn't one of the official ones, was it?
No. But I'm just saying. I
Right.
like, don't believe everything you read or hear.
Sure.
Or see. But no, thank you for the call, Emma. All right, let's play our third caller.
Kongversation, I missed you so much. I really miss listening to these and calling in. Wow, that returns update. I felt like when I first saw that, I felt like I'd do a double take, because never in a million years would I thought that they would have just like gone back to an over like 10-year-old game. Like I was like, was it 15 years old now? 15-year-old game, and to add another character for free. It's like, who even asked for this? I mean, I love it, though. In retrospect, I was asking for it. Because Dixie Kong is, I'd say either Dixie Kong or DK are my favorite Kongs, but it's just really interesting because it's really exciting, because we really are just in a new era of Donkey Kong where they're actually, like, regularly doing stuff for the franchise. And I think I don't remember if I've called it about this before, but I would love to see a new Donkey Kong spin-off game, and I'm just, like, wondering what would you think would be a good spin-off game for them to make for their next, like, release after Bonanza? Because I'm thinking we're going to get a spin-off game before a new mainline game. Personally, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I like the idea of, like, a Donkey Kong, like, fighting game, like a 3D fighting game, and I came up with the name Donkey Kong Rumble Jungle. And I think that would be pretty cool, because, you know, you get, like, a lot of different characters in there. You could get, like, of course, you want a bunch of Kongs, some Kremlings, and then also there's, like, one or two, like, Snowmads, like Tikis or Voidco. And there's just a lot of potential, like, fighter ideas and I think just, like, with, like, all the punching and smashularness of Donkey Kong Bonanza, a fighting game would be perfect. So, yeah, I want to know what you guys would think. Really happy to be calling in again. Bye. Also, this is Claire.
Hi, Claire. Thank you,
Claire.
Thank you for calling. So, yeah, I do think Donkey Kong, people call them spin-off games. I don't use that terminology. I like to call them side games, because to me, spin-off conjures up we're taking a particular character and giving them their own franchise. That's what a spin-off is in my mind. So I refer to them as side games just in case anybody's ever confused by...
So Shadow the Hedgehog is a spin-off to you too. Good. I agree.
No, it would be. It would be, though. I mean, I also consider Banjo-Kazooie to be a spin-off of Donkey Kong. It's technically a backdoor spin-off, but it still counts. Anyway, I think we will get side games, and I also think that is... Everybody gets focused on the Mario side games. Why aren't there more Kongs in the Mario side games? Why aren't we getting Dixie and Young Pauline and... I don't know. Trying to think of an off the wall pick here. That isn't just the same characters I always spit out of my mouth. Let's say why aren't we getting the great Harmonial in a Mario sports game? And it's like, well. Probably because, and not everybody believes me on this, but it's probably because they want to save some of those for Donkey Kong games. Not of those ilk. I'm not saying they're just going to roll out with Donkey Kong Tennis. They're not going to double up on what Mario's already doing or has already been regimented. And also there are serious cash cows with Mario. So a Donkey Kong version of that would never perform as well. So it is like, where does that leave Donkey Kong? Like, what does he have left? What, scraps does he have left to pick over? And, people have speculated a fighting game that isn't like Smash. But then again, you could do a racing game that isn't like Mario Kart and revive the Diddy Kong Racing brand. They still
that is obviously, I alluded to this earlier when I was talking about, what are they doing with these Bonanza models? That's what I hope they're doing with the Bonanza models. I hope my number one wish is that the racing layer in Bonanza plus the Emerald Rush models were alluding to something, and that is the side game that we're going to get.
Here's the thing.
Some sort of basically Donkey Kong Racing finally made manifest.
Bonanza has set up a couple possibilities. The Ramby Rumble. You could do a whole game with that and, refine it a little bit. Make it like Donkey Kong Racing. Maybe just call it Diddy Kong Racing because that is the IP. And, it's been so long, but, you could rejuice it, put the original on NSO, finally. And you could do that. You could do Emerald Rush as its own standalone thing eventually. Really expand it outwards and, have more characters and, make it more of a competitive thing, 2-player, 4-player, competitive Emerald Rush with different Donkey Kong
probably.
characters.
That would probably fit if the Nintendo wanted to do a battle royale kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's where my mind goes. And, because, you could just say, well, Donkey Kong Volleyball. Mario isn't doing volleyball. Donkey Kong Volleyball. There you go. Which is possible. It's possible. I'm just saying, I think that's the lazy route. And also, Mario is always going to be the slightly more lucrative brand. No matter how much they build up Donkey Kong and really get his, popularity, close to Mario, it's never going to be Mario in the public consciousness. I think things like the Donkey Kong movie will go a long way towards getting us there, but Mario Kart's always going to outsell Diddy Kong Racing. That's just the way it is. That is a beast, Mario Kart. So
it's true, but at the same time, we got a new Kirby Air Ride last year.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like anything is on the table,
Sure.
Except of course for a new F-Zero.
Yeah, they're just gonna give it shit like F-Zero 99, just tossed off stuff that nobody likes. Am I right?
F-Zero 99's a great time.
I'm just purposely stepping in it because I stepped in it before, and if I make it a reoccurring comedic bit, then people will be less angry with me because they think I'm not serious.
Maybe we'll get DKC 99.
Maybe we'll call it DKC 94. 99 is Donkey Kong 64. Come on.
Sure. DKC 1900s.
Yeah. I don't know what we could get. I do think we will be getting, around the time of the Donkey Kong movie, we're going to be getting a new game. Whether that is a full-on Donkey Kong Country game, whether that is one of these side games, to be determined. But I think it's not going to be long until we find out what's next. And that's what's very exciting.
I had to take a guess, and this is just purely a guess, I would say that what will happen next is a 2D Donkey Kong Country game.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That seems like the safest bet to me.
I am leaning towards that. There are already being discussions being had about that in Nintendo, if it's not already in early stages of development. But I also think, they're going to want to capitalize on it with product on the shelves. And part of this decade-long plan to rebuild the Donkey Kong franchise is having games continually come out. And so I think that we'll just have to wait a little bit longer while we're still enjoying things like Bonanza's DLC and surprise updates to old favorites.
And if nothing else, maybe we'll get Diddy Kong Racing on NSO one of these years.
That would be great too.
That would be, yeah.
I mean, we got the Virtual Boy back, so I mean, come on. All right, let's play our fourth caller.
Hello, Hyle. Welcome back from your break. I hope you had a restful one. And hello, Josh. You are actually the reason why I found out about DK Vine in the first place, so thank you for that. This is Rose, aka Brinstar Real Estate, and my question for you is, so Diddy Kong, you know, in Tropical Freeze, everyone was like, oh, well, why would you ever use Diddy Kong when Dixie's right there? And, you know, it's just kind of fun to have Diddy around, so I like to use him anyway. But now that he's been added, or now that Dixie's been added to Returns, I know that that's probably coming up for a lot of people, like, oh, well, Dixie's just better than Diddy Kong in every way, gameplay-wise. So my question is there anything that you would do if you were in charge of the game to buff Diddy Kong? Is there anything you would do to make him more distinct from what Dixie can do, make him more interesting? Yeah, anything like that? Thanks for your response.
Well, thank you for the call, Rose. I think we only lightly touched upon this, Josh, but it was more in reference to the way Diddy differed from Dixie in the classic Donkey Kong Country games. We didn't get into what we would do to this game to make Diddy stand out more, but I think it would be the same principles. And it's kind of hard in single player when Diddy is just on Donkey's back, isn't it?
That's true, because he needs to be, no matter what, he needs to be some sort of an upgrade over what Donkey Kong can inherently do.
Yeah.
So my first thought is to, and by the way, you're welcome for introducing you to DK Vine. I'm glad to bring more people into more like-minded weirdos into the fold. My first thought, though, is that I would ideally like to find some way to replicate basically what his dynamic was to Dixie in DKC2, which is that he's faster but more challenging. So, like, one thing that comes to mind is that maybe his rocket barrels could give him like a quick little burst of upward momentum that is a lot faster than Dixie's, more lenient hair poof. Like a little poof of upward momentum, but that, I don't know, then maybe doesn't go up as high or degrades faster or feels more like a double jump. I don't know. In terms of, you can't really make him move faster though, because DK's like partner role is already so speedy. So I don't think you'd want to mess with that, or like say make Dixie slower to compensate.
I mean, I could see Diddy being on Donkey's back and just like injecting a syringe of crank into Donkey's neck, and like
he just activates turbo mode.
Just inject that burning DK straight into his veins.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a tough question, and I see why Retro didn't want to mess with the formula too much in Tropical Freeze. Because yeah, like I said, when given this format, you always need whoever DK's partner is to function as a power up to what he does, to what DK can do by himself.
Right.
So that does sort of limit you in terms of what you can do with regards to making the game more challenging depending on which partner you pick.
I will say, though, we're talking about a future 2D Donkey Kong game, whether that's part of the actual Donkey Kong Country lineage or not. I think it will be. I think Nintendo's going to lean into Donkey Kong Country as a brand and continue to do so. And I think maybe even make that more of an international branding, like in Japan, call it Donkey Kong Country. But I think, like, in the future, the characters aren't going to be riding on Donkey Kong's back.
I would say. So I haven't like said this outright, but I keep meaning to. My biggest problem with Returns, and I guess Tropical Freeze 2 now, and the thing that I really, really wish is that, one, you could play as the solo Kongs without doing that hacky little two-player mode exploit. Because, like, I really would, and I know you can do that in hard mode in Tropical Freeze as well, but I wish there was a way to just play as whatever Kong you wanted. Even if that was just something that you unlocked the ability to do after you beat the game once, say. Because I know that would, by default, be a hard mode. The other thing is I really, really wish that there was a way, at least in multiplayer, to pick whatever combination of Kongs you wanted.
Right.
Because it's always bothered me, for instance, in Tropical Freeze, that you have Diddy and Dixie, who I think of as a pair. You know, they are canonically in a relationship with each other. I think they complement each other mechanically very well, and which is the most important thing when you're considering compatibility in video game relationships. And it's always been very strange to me that, like, the only time you see them on screen together in gameplay is when is in a very brief window when you're swapping between them and the other one flies away.
Right. Right.
Like, it would punch me in the nostalgia so hard if I could just like see Diddy and Dixie running around on screen together.
Or Dixie and Cranky.
Yeah.
What the hell would they talk about? The ending to Lost, maybe? I don't know.
Does Cranky still think that women don't deserve to be heroes in video games, or has he mellowed out on that over the years?
Or has he gotten even more radicalized because
he's probably gotten even more radicalized.
His cable news preferences. Oh my God.
Does the Rare Archipelago have a Fox News equivalent?
There was the news channel hosted by literal foxes in Star Fox Assault, but that doesn't really count. But, you know, yeah. So I would imagine in Conker's neck of the woods, there would be all that shit for sure.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Happy 25th anniversary, Conker's Bad Fur Day. Anyway, yeah, like we said, Diddy's got to be quicker than Dixie. He's got to be a faster climber, maybe, but that's really hard to do when he's on Donkey Kong's back. So this probably won't be a problem in future Donkey Kong Country games. I don't really see how you can elegantly rectify it here, especially when it's just trickling backwards from Tropical Freeze.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page there too, that while, to make it clear, while our speculation is that a 2D Donkey Kong Country game may be coming soon, that we don't think it's going to be beholden to being exactly like what the retro duology was.
Yeah.
Like, it's probably going to be its own new thing, more similar. I mean, given the precedent that Bonanza set, that's definitely what you'd expect.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, thank you for the call, Rose. All right, let's play our fifth call.
Hey, this is Tofu. I am once again calling about something I haven't played yet. Sorry, but I promise it's relevant. So, as I said before, I am primarily a Banjo-Kazooie fan, and which is kind of a casual Donkey Kong fan, sorry. And, you know, I only played, stuff somewhat related to Banjo-Kazooie like Diddy Kong Racing and 64. Side note, oh my God, all the stop and swap stuff. I can't wait to hear an episode about that, sometime in the future, hopefully. Yeah. Anyways, Bonanza fully converted me into a proper Donkey Kong fan, and over the past few months, I have actually been playing through the DKC series for the first time, and I really love Donkey Kong Country 1. I 101%ed it on all 3 save files. I even started playing the GBA version, just because I wanted to unlock Hero Mode, because that seems really fun. I did play Donkey Kong Land. It was okay. And I just recently finished DKC 2 for the first time, and oh my God, I get it. I understand everything now. That is like one of the best platformers I've ever played. I think it like even puts modern platformers to shame, like Mario Wonder, and like I really liked Mario Wonder, but it doesn't have Dixie Kong in it. Sorry. Anyways, so when I saw the announcement for Dixie Kong being added to Returns HD, I thought it was really cool. I hadn't even played that game yet. Just cause like, I think the concept of retroactively adding a character to a previous game is so interesting to me. Like, to me, that's like if they added Mumbo or Split Up Pads into the original Banjo-Kazooie. Like, that's insane to me. So with that and like how much of a DKC kick I had been on lately, you know, that announcement just kind of fully convinced me to buy both Returns HD and Tropical Freeze. and I'm really excited to play through them eventually. But obviously, I have some more important games to play first, like Donkey Kong Land 2. So that's all I really wanted to say, just that the announcement of Dixie Kong in Returns HD is kind of what sold me on the game, which I think is kind of funny. And also, this announcement kind of made me think, I wonder if they're pushing Dixie Kong more for Smash, but that's another can of worms. Anyways, I'm just excited to play more Donkey Kong and to hear you talk more about Donkey Kong, because now, more than ever, I just really love Donkey Kong. Thank you, and have a great day.
Well, thank you for the call, Tofu. I don't really have anything substantive to add to that, but wow, you are among like-minded people, let me tell you.
I think that's really cool, and I think that makes a lot of sense that if you're primarily, if he was first and foremost a Banjo fan, it makes so much sense that like Bonanza would would kind of be the now I get it moment to. And yeah, that's really, really cool. But especially, seeing the light on DKC too. I like the fact that Bonanza can then be your gateway back into the older games and then like have them make sense. And like you see the fundamental appeal that was there for those of us who came up through the linear timeline. Like, that's really cool. And just Andre points out in the chat that first and foremost, Banjo fan who acknowledges the centrality of Diddy Kong Racing. It's a rarity these days. It's a rarity. It's great to see. And DKC2 clears Mario Wonder a million times over. I wasn't very big on Mario Wonder myself.
I mean, it didn't have Dixie Kong in it.
I didn't have Dixie Kong, yeah.
As Tofu pointed out. That's my biggest problem with it, honestly. It's my biggest problem with most things.
Like where's Dixie Kong?
Yeah, like I watched the movie Sinners, which fantastic movie, Josh. I mean, oh my God, like I'm not even a horror guy. Sinners is terrific. But my biggest criticism was Ryan Coogler couldn't have put Dixie Kong in there somewhere.
We just watched Severance, and the whole time I was thinking, but how would Dixie respond to this?
Look, all I'm saying is in the scene where the past, present, and future of music converge, you could have just put Dixie on her guitar in the background somewhere. Would have been acceptable.
Say what you will about Lost. Why aren't we acknowledging Dixie Kong?
Why aren't they? I mean, Sawyer did mention Donkey Kong once, but it was the arcade Donkey Kong, so therefore it's Cranky Kong. Anyway.
Of course it was.
Anyway. I will say, though, Tofu, you played the Game Boy Advance version of Donkey Kong Country, so therefore you saw both the severed head of the Saber Wolf and the cast of Saber Wolf in the framed portrait in Cranky's cabin, so therefore you also have to play Saberwolf for the GBA. I don't make the rules. I just, make the rules.
You do make the rules, yes.
Yeah, a little bit. Maybe.
You wrote them. Well,
I mean, Jeff and Matt wrote the current version on the website.
That's true, yeah.
So I wash my hands of that. The universe just guides me to the rules.
That's right.
All right. Thank you for the call. Hey, we'll be talking about Banjo-Kazooie later this year with the Super Pocket Rare Edition, or the Spree, as I'm calling it.
And the Stop and Swap. You need to make a playlist that's just all of the Kongversation Stop and Swap episodes.
I might have to, because the next episode will be the Stop and Swap episode.
Yep.
All right. Let's play our sixth call.
Welcome back, DK Vine. This is TJ calling in to discuss Donkey Kong Country Returns HD's update. So, one of the biggest reasons I love Tropical Freeze is because of Dixie Kong. Playing through those levels with a double jump just makes you so much more confident, and thus, a lot of platforming is way more fun to me. And while I still think Tropical Freeze might be the better game just because of how much it offers, it's kind of ridiculous how much putting Dixie Kong in Donkey Kong Country Returns does to close the gap between them. Like, I'm having so much more fun with Donkey Kong Country Returns. It's making me appreciate a lot about that game. When I get the itch to just play one of Retro's Donkey Kong games, I actually reach for Returns HD first because there's a huge appeal to those levels being shorter. So yeah, I really love this update. There's some other undocumented changes that this update did. For instance, it changes how the reserve tag barrels work. Instead of summoning one by throwing it and getting to, cheese enemy kills off of that, it now works like Tropical Freeze, where the Reserve Kong just kind of pops in. So, there's under the hood, there's a lot of changes, but I just love this update in general. And, I'm sure we're all grateful for it. It would have been nice if she was there from the beginning, because this game was really aggressively marketed, and it would have been cool having all those Walmart standees and all that stuff with Dixie Kong in those new renders, but I'll take what I can get. So I do love this update. And once again, thank you for taking the call, and welcome back.
Well, thank you for the call, TJ. Again, we don't know, and I haven't been able to find out anything. Unfortunately, Forever Entertainment SA is kind of a closed bubble that I cannot penetrate with all of my Donkey Kong journalism. But I think this idea of Dixie Kong being added to the game probably didn't come about until it was already past the point of release, or it was a hypothetical that they were banning about, but nothing was really settled on when it came out. So yeah, on one hand, it would have been nice to have all of those renders of Dixie Kong with Donkey and Diddy, and maybe put her on the box art. It's a little bit weird. She's not even referenced at all on the box art for the physical edition, but
yeah, some Switch 1 games have gotten reprints, the Switch 2 edition, but that typically only has happened, I think, if it's a little bit more expensive, or if the DLC is now bundled in with it.
Yeah. But again, I'm okay with it because of we've been talking about this very staggered approach to keeping momentum for the Donkey Kong brand. And I think having this as a bonus, or not even even more than a bonus, having this as a real big damn deal when we got it in January 2026, it almost means more coming out of Bonanza and everything Bonanza did and everything Bonanza kind of promises us about the future of the series, and how everything is being respected, the full history of Donkey Kong, nothing is being disregarded. And I think now coming into this, and it's oh yeah, and now Dixie is a playable character in Returns. I think it just feels a little bit more special than it even would have back in January 2025, before we knew what Bonanza was.
That's true, especially because, like we were talking about earlier, had she just been there from the beginning, it would have just gotten overshadowed by the Switch 2 reveal, by the new Donkey Kong design, and then by Bonanza. So it would have just been oh yeah, that was cool. That was cool as that happened. I think this way actually sort of paradoxically has put more of a spotlight on it. And to the point that they were making, I think it's really, really nice for me as somebody who, like I was saying earlier, always liked Returns a whole lot, and has come to the point where I've decided that I like it, that I actually slightly prefer it to Tropical Freeze. I feel like Returns, let's face it, Returns and Tropical Freeze are fundamentally very, very, very similar games. And I think, especially ever since Tropical Freeze came out on Switch, that there's been this sort of, I don't know if overshadowed is the word that I want to use, but because Tropical Freeze has been so much more accessible to so many more people on such successful hardware for so much longer, I do feel like Returns has gone a bit overlooked. And I think it's really nice between HD, between the HD version, between Dixie Kong, between the park, that Returns has gotten, a chance to be at least just as represented and accessible as Tropical Freeze is. And that's really nice to see. And it's nice to hear someone who is appreciating it more than they were before because Dixie is in it.
Yeah, it's, like I said, been one of the biggest, again, to use the term paradoxes, of the Donkey Kong series post 2010 is Returns has been the most formative moment in the series up until Bonanza, but it was the least accessible Donkey Kong game for the longest time. So for it to get this rub, this well-deserved rub, given what it means to the series, to our fandom, I wouldn't be here right now. I wouldn't be talking with you right now if it wasn't for Returns.
Right.
All my issues with Returns, it's never been down to the mechanical level, especially once we got rid of the waggle controls.
Sure.
Or provided an alternative to the waggle controls. And so, like, I think Returns mechanically, I like it better than the original Donkey Kong Country. That's always been my controversial take. I wouldn't say I like it better than Tropical Freeze, but it is something that I am seeing like, oh, yeah, it does this better than Tropical Freeze. I do prefer this. And sometimes I'm just not in the mood for Tropical Freeze's long-ass levels, and I just want something a little bit more bite-sized.
It was nice to hear somebody else, point that out, too, in that call. Because that's something that again I don't really hear a lot of, and again it's cool because when Returns HD was first announced, I do remember some people being like, well, I mean, I guess that's fine, but like, what's the point? Tropical Freeze is already on Switch, and it's like 2 cakes, you know?
Yeah.
Why are you complaining about having 2 cakes?
Yeah. I was so happy when they announced Returns HD, and I felt like. I was one of the only ones. It wasn't true, but like, it really was like everybody wanted the new game. And I was like, but this, for me, it was just more evidence that the new game was coming. And, it was like, this is just the next part of their rehabilitation phase for the Donkey Kong series. And people are just like, okay, but when's a new game coming? And we didn't have long to wait after all, but yeah.
No, not at all.
All right. Well, we have one more call to take, and then we do have a comment from Blue Sky. So let's play the 7th and final call of the calls we are playing right now.
Hey, howdy, hey, it's Nick Vez here. Thank you for being back. We missed you guys big time, as we always do. I wanted to ask, if we were to get a new Returns, which I think is inevitable, which Kong would you put in it? And what are your thoughts on it being Kiddy Kong? I mean, to me, it feels like he would be the best pick considering he's the only mainstay Kong member who hasn't received love in Bonanza yet. And, you know, he's part of the trilogy, the original trilogy lore, and we just haven't really seen him come back. So putting him in a new Returns, I think, would be the best call. But what do you guys think? Let me hear your 2 cents. Thank you for being back. We love the show. You guys rule. You King K rule.
Thank you, Nick Vez.
All right, Hyle. I think this has been enough for me. I don't want to be part of the community anymore. I don't think that I can, in good conscience, continue to really be on the internet at all. So I'm going to go now. I'm going to let you handle this one.
I don't think Nick was trying to rile you up. I don't think everybody knows of your historical aversion to Kiddy Kong.
The past, present, and future. I mean, it's not historical. It ain't going anywhere.
The scene from Sinners, but it's just burning white rage for like all these Kiddy Kong sprites in the same juke joint. No, I think that
he hasn't been in a game in 30 years, and if he's not in another game for 30 more, then it'll still be too soon.
That's not true, Josh. His spirit was in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
That's not Kitty. That's a picture of Kitty.
No, that's his spirit. Just like his spirit is within all of us.
Okay, but listen. What I did, and I'm not making this up, I upgraded the Dixie sprite, because that's the only reason, that's the only way that you get Dixie and Kitty. I saw that, I immediately sold it, got another Dixie, upgraded it all the way to level 100, and then did not like prestige it or whatever it's called. So, I was like, not in my game.
All right. Well, look. So Nick framed this as another Returns, like the 3rd retro game. It's not going to be that. I would be shocked if it was that. Could be that. I mean, I'm not saying that's impossible, but I think we will be getting something internally developed at Nintendo. It's going to be something that kind of breaks this mold a little bit and maybe incorporates a little bit more of the original trilogy with some of the stuff Retro did, but it's going to be its own kind of 3rd iteration of what Donkey Kong Country can be. That's my theory, at the very least. Well-educated guess, we'll call it that. But I think, like Josh and I have talked about, there will be several playable Kongs in it, and I think you could even see some of the DK64 Kongs come back. I think like Lanky and Chunky. I mean, Chunky's going through something right now with the Super Mario Brothers movie cameo, and now the statue in Bonanza. Who's to say, but I think good times are ahead for Chunky Kong. Now, as far as Kiddy Kong, I feel like I always harp on this when people talk about bringing back Kiddy Kong, but there is one obstacle to overcome. And that is the fact that you have to age him up because they aged up Tiny Kong. They cannot just ignore that.
See, I don't know, because the fact that Tiny is canonically Dixie's younger sister, and yet Dixie doesn't look like that.
No, but Tiny went through a growth spurt, and now she's taller than her older sister. It does happen.
Well, sure, but like, is Dixie an adult?
That was
is she fully grown?
That was Emma's theory, our caller,
sure.
That's what I've maintained. Like, you can headcanon that, Diddy and Dixie, they are monkeys, so they could be adults. They could be in their 40s now. We don't know.
Sure.
Their stature just suggests children, but that's just how we were introduced to them.
Is it possible that Tiny and Dixie are only half siblings, and that would explain the radical difference in their, like maybe Dixie's parents are both monkeys, and whereas one of Tiny's parents was a gorilla.
Well, okay, I don't know if you can genetically breed a gorilla and a monkey even in this cartoon-ass world, which always has one foot in reality, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the thing about Donkey Kong compared to some other Nintendo IPs is that cartoony realism, which even Bonanza does still uphold, and honestly, like, leans into more than some past Donkey Kong games. Like, I would say Bonanza has a greater fidelity to it than Donkey Kong 64, or even aspects of Returns. Hello, Moon Punch. But, anyway, my point is, Teenage Tiny, they're not undoing that. That is her state of being in her statue in Bonanza. So a lot of people are like, oh, I hope they just retcon or ignore that. It's like, no, they're not ignoring anything. Everything happened. So anyway, Kiddy. Right, I would say age him up. My favorite theory is he is like this stunted, Arrested Development, like older Kong now, but he's still very much this childish man baby. Maybe not man baby, but teenage baby man boy.
Teenage baby man boy. I feel like that would be one thing, but that would also be very much like similar to what Chunky is.
No, but you give him a little propeller hat beanie.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would say do not bring back Kiddy no matter what, and just use Chunky instead because he's way better. And he whatever you want to do with Kiddy, Chunky can do it better.
There's also my pitch for Kitties, lest you forget. Kitties.
True.
A Donkey Kong side game, or in this case, if it's Kiddy Kong's game, we'll call it a spin-off, where Kiddy is this cat hoarding weirdo who lives in a studio apartment, and you just collect cats, and the more cats you get, the better you do at the game, and Kiddy will occasionally lick the cats.
Oh god, we finally get Donkey Kong Country 4. And it actually is starring Kiddy Kong. That would be my monkey's paw situation.
Now, come on, Returns is Donkey Kong Country 4. Let's not do this Banjo 3 stuff where the Nuts and Bolts doesn't really count as a mainline Banjo-Kazooie game. It's like, no, it counts.
Yeah, it does. I agree.
All right.
No, I just mean they call it Donkey Kong Country 4.
TJ has joined us in the chat saying, came into the tail end of this, my first time viewing a Kongversation live. Cannot believe I made it just in time to hear my call get answered. Oh, Good timing, yeah. All right, so we do have a comment from Blue Sky. We do allow people, if they don't feel like calling in, if they are scared of the sound of their own voice, or if just talking
I can't imagine what that's like.
Oh, you get over it when you do this for 14 years, trust me. But there's also people who just, like, I'm no good at leaving messages on a voicemail. Or an answering machine in olden times. Like, it freaks me out. Like, I'm not talking to anybody. I don't have any repartee to play with here. Mm-hmm. So, I get it. So sometimes people just want to send in text thoughts that we can read. So you can always do that. You can DM me on Blue Sky. We're at dkvine.com there, or the DKVine forum. So, Josh, to preserve my voice, which is still rusty after my 2-month hiatus, would you like to read this comment from Blue Sky?
All right, this is Low Zombie, who says, "This might honestly be the most insane thing Nintendo has ever done. If you gave the DK fandom a million guesses as to what would be announced first for the post-Bonanza DK era, I guarantee nobody would have gotten Dixie Kong being added to Returns HD a whole ass year later. Because I don't think something quite this big has ever been added to what is essentially a bare minimum port of Returns. And it's not like they just copy and pasted the Tropical Freeze data 100% either. They gave Dixie unique animations in the in-engine boss fight cutscenes to set her apart from Diddy, such as the crab boss fight having Dixie slide on her feet, like she's skating to a stop in comparison to Diddy Kong, who slid on his ass. Or the fact that they reprogrammed the super mods that activates when you struggle on a level, just so they could have Super Dixie Kong be a part of the level clearing. She looks quite swell in blue. Yeah, I wish you could play as them. Anyway. And the best part is, this was all free. They quite literally got no immediate financial benefit from this. They could have locked her behind a $5 Switch 2 edition upgrade, but they didn't. They put all this effort when they had almost certainly no reason to do so. Nobody would have batted an eye if they never did this update, but I'm so glad they did, because when I saw the announcement come up on my feed with Nintendo mentioning her by name, I damn near had a heart attack on the spot. I'm so insanely grateful that they added her to Returns. It felt wonderful to see Dixie actually get the spotlight to herself again, rather than being relatively overshadowed by the grandiose Bonanza, or in a blink and you'll miss it silent cameo in the Mario movie. Also, I read online somewhere that Returns was one of the only modern Nintendo games that didn't have any female characters in it. Pretty much everyone in that game was a guy, so it's nice that Returns HD fixed that by adding one Dixie Kong. 2026 is already off to a great start for DK fans, and especially for Dixie Kong. I hope to see more good things from her in the future.
Oh, well, thank you for the comment. Low Zombie, one of the most passionate Dixie Kong fans out there today.
Like-minded weirdos, yeah.
Let's wrap this up, Josh. Final thoughts. How many times can I have final thoughts on Donkey Kong Country Returns?
Right.
So, like, you know me, I'm usually not a fan of these George Lucasian revisionist histories, like altering things how they genuinely happened. I usually don't like this. I usually don't go for this kind of thing.
Well, I think nowadays we're to the point where George Lucas is like a misunderstood genius, and actually he never did anything wrong.
I mean, I have respect for George Lucas. I do. I'm never going to get on board with the prequel trilogy as like, oh yeah, those are misunderstood works of art. Like,
right.
No, but look, if you put Dixie Kong in the prequel movies, how much better would they be? I mean, honestly.
That's true.
No, but even with Star Wars, right? Like, in all seriousness, when he did the special editions, and then he did the newer special editions for the DVD release, and then we got the McClunky version, he keeps altering the films, or at least he kept altering the films before selling them to Disney. And there are aspects to those changes that I do think generally are improvements to the films, like the ending montage at the end of Return of the Jedi, where we see different planets celebrating the death of the Emperor, and it's set to a new, more somber piece of music. I think that helps convey the weight of the entire series coming to a close at that point. It's a good change. And I think Dixie being added to Donkey Kong Country Returns is another good, sensible change that enriches the material. I just don't like that the most accessible way to play Returns now does force the player into this ahistorical experience. Like, I am somebody who is very scholarly minded when it comes to this kind of things, and I would just love if the original iteration of Returns was still available within this product, within this release. That's my only problem with it.
I think it would bother me a little bit. Not that it bothers me at all, really, but I think it would be. I would look at it a little bit differently if she had just been in this version from the beginning. Like the fact that there was a Donkey Kong Country Returns HD.
Yeah.
That was more reminiscent of the original work. And now that version is, I guess, if you have the physical version on a cartridge, I guess you can uninstall all of the updates and get it that way.
Right. But
otherwise, it's functionally inaccessible.
Yeah, and that's weird, right? Especially because it was available for 369 days, and then it wasn't. and we can't get it back unless you go through all that trouble. And like this might be moot in 10 years time when we get Wii games on Nintendo Switch Online and they just add the original version of Returns there, and then you could just play it there, and 3DS games, and then you can just play that version of Returns and whatever, in this rebuilding era that we find ourselves in this bonanza era of the Donkey Kong series, I think it's important that Dixie is immediately established as a vital, important pillar of the series right alongside Donkey and Diddy. So no qualms with this, really. Like going back to the Star Wars comparison again, we've often said that Donkey Kong Country Returns was very similar, in fact, to The Force Awakens, which came out 5 years after Returns, but they're very similar in the way they execute being a legacy sequel. And, The Force Awakens would really make that kind of sequel in vogue for several years after that, but Returns did it before. Half a decade before. Force Awakens, by the way, was also directed by J.J. Abrams, who created the show Lost, Josh.
True.
Yeah. So what they both did, Returns and The Force Awakens, is they both repeated the broad strokes of the original material. Force Awakens with the original 1977 Star Wars, Returns with the 1994 Donkey Kong Country. But they extremely pared down the returning cast. And they both seem to go out of their way not to evoke later entries. With Returns, it was, everything after Donkey Kong Country. And then with The Force Awakens, it was, let's not acknowledge the prequels whatsoever. But
which made sense at the time.
People don't realize in 2015 that was probably the smart call, but it's only now with the benefit of hindsight that you're like, that's weird.
I had literally never heard anything good. I'm not a Star Wars fan, so this is all from the outside looking in. I'd never heard anything good about the prequels until after The Last Jedi, and then suddenly it was like, oh, the prequels were great, actually. And I was like, is this satire? Are you serious?
There's a good story to be found within the prequels. It's just not executed competently, let's say.
Okay, so here's the thing. Donkey Kong Country Returns, for one thing, video games and movies aren't one-to-one comparable. Adding Dixie Kong to it's an interactive medium, so adding another playable character doesn't have the same effect that, say, adding a character to a movie that the character wasn't originally in would. Also, it's not like we're trying to decommission. Nintendo is not desperately trying to bury the original version of Donkey Kong Country Returns, buying up used copies of it and trying to pretend it never existed. And it's just between that and emulation, and I guess if you bought it on the Wii U Virtual Console, you can still the original version of DKC Returns is still readily accessible if you want it.
Sure. And, you know, the original versions of the Star Wars trilogy were still available if you had, like, the Laserdisc. But, you know, it made
And
actually...
if you don't have a Laserdisc player, what's wrong with you?
It did make actually tracking them down and viewing them hard, when George Lucas disavowed them. And anyway, my point being, though, that, like, Returns and The Force Awakens, they're both competently made. And for their time, quite enjoyable. I think, you know, Returns probably holds up a little bit better than The Force Awakens. But I would say the thing they both prioritize above all else, recapturing the vibes of that original product, be it the 1994 Donkey Kong Country or the 1977 Star Wars. And I think as a Donkey Kong Country super fan, like, that's my thing, Josh, is the Donkey Kong universe. And Donkey Kong has always kind of been at the absolute center of all of that. Donkey Kong Country is what made me a fan. And I think that's always been my biggest hang up when it comes to Returns, because it never felt to me, the person who lives and breathes this as my ultimate fandom more than anything else, it never felt like a full-throated return to Donkey Kong Country. It felt like not superficial, but it felt like this very hesitant return to the series. Because yes, it had Donkey, it had Diddy, it had Cranky Kong, it had Rambi, it had Squawks. I love all those characters. I love those characters. I could write just the most romantic poetry when it comes to my love for those characters. I could write an operetta about how much those characters mean to me.
In a sense, that's what your life's work is.
Yeah, in a sense. In a sense, and that sounds really pathetic when you frame it like that, Josh, so I'm just going to whistle past the graveyard.
I meant it as a compliment.
Thank you. To me, it sounds like a really damning indictment, but I even like some of the new characters, and I like some of the new concepts, and those would help define the identity of Donkey Kong for the next 15 years. But I always couldn't shake this feeling that Donkey Kong Country Returns felt like a Donkey Kong game that was trying a little bit to appease the decade of bad faith criticisms towards the Donkey Kong Country series. And while it wasn't like ashamed to be a Donkey Kong game, it seemed almost tragically self-aware that it was a Donkey Kong Country game, if that makes any sense.
It's not that it doesn't make sense, but I do think that a lot of that comes from, I guess, being in the trenches, so to speak. You know what I mean?
It comes from being in the trenches, but it also comes from the way they promoted the game, or the way some corners of Nintendo promoted the game back in 2010. I bring up the December 2010 issue of Nintendo Power, which was the Donkey Kong Country Returns cover story. And I quote, "This game also cuts down dramatically on the number of Kong characters, which had swelled to include everything from giant babies to disturbingly voluptuous furry vixens. We much prefer the simplified, back-to-basics cast, which includes only Cranky Kong, in addition to Donkey and Diddy."
Well, the Vixen was in DKC1. What are you talking about?
Right, like, it completely ignores that Candy was in the original Donkey Kong Country, as was the character of Funky Kong. And it also just completely sidesteps the popularity of Dixie Kong, who, upon her debut, almost immediately warranted her getting her own starring role a year later. And it was so dismissive and snarky, and it's like, you're trying to sell fans on this, and you're saying, oh, thank God it gets rid of all that shit. Finally, Donkey Kong Country done right. And it's like, fuck off. But
man, Sonic and Donkey Kong had a lot in common in 2010.
We got over it, all right? Like, that's the thing, though, is like, eventually, through sheer perseverance, but also just the passage of time and fellow fans actually getting jobs in the industry, we've turned this around, and and now like it's all just celebrated, and we all are just happy finally to have everything be appreciated without all of this weird internet politics clouding everything for the better part of 10 years. But, to what Low Zombie's point, it was never great, especially for 2010, that there was a Donkey Kong game with absolutely no female characters in it.
Yeah, that's pretty weird.
Even Jungle Beat, Josh, even Jungle Beat had Orko the killer whale, who was implied to be a mother. We had Ellie the elephant, Martha, and the Vandellas in the original Donkey Konga, okay? Like, what the hell, Returns? Like, why such a sausage fest? Like, I'm not saying Zygmunt the zebra exudes toxic masculinity, but all the same, maybe you should have put somebody in there originally like Dixie or that voluptuous furry vixen. I don't know. But my broader point here is this, I feel like, rectifies one of the cardinal sins I had with Returns at launch, and that I've carried with me all these years, despite loving Returns, despite having a great deal of admiration for Returns and everything it did for the Donkey Kong series, up to and including keeping DK Vine going. Like, DK Vine would have shut down if it wasn't for Returns, so I do owe everything to this game. But yeah, this is a change I can get on board with, and this is one of those things where even though it kind of alters history, this isn't the same thing as George Lucas adding the Honeycombs mascot singing in Jabba's palace, or Hayden Christensen's ghost giving sultry bedroom eyes to his son on the forest moon of Endor. This is just fixing a little bit of an oversight from Donkey Kong Country Returns with everything that has transpired since then, from Tropical Freeze onward, and saying, hey, you know what? Dixie Kong is one of the most important characters when it comes to the Donkey Kong Country brand. She should have been here from the start. Here she is. And yeah, I love it. I'm happy with it.
Let's just be thankful that Tropical Freeze didn't follow in the path of The Last Jedi. Let's be thankful that the comparisons ended there.
And yet, to take a page out of the Rise of Skywalker's book, now somehow Dixie Kong has returned. 12 years after she returned to Tropical Freeze, but 3 years before that. But 1 year after Donkey Kong Country's returned again following its first return.
Yes.
Why do people say the Donkey Kong timeline is confusing again? I really don't get it.
It's so simple.
This has been a File 2 production.
¡Qué rico!